Hopefully we'll be there by the time we start.
And then tomorrow morning, there's like breakfast.
Okay. Yeah, so there will be light breakfast tomorrow morning, thanks to Cloudflare, so you can make your plans accordingly if that interests you. When we'll be here? Like 9? At 9 o'clock, when the doors open.
Hey, chairs, when we do get going, I see some new faces, maybe we can just do it.
Oh, we also have some name tags if people will need them.
Okay. All right, it's 9:30, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Over QUIC interim. Thanks again to our Cloudflare hosts. Okay, we can just do we can do a quick introduction as we go around. Start over to Hassan, we'll just go around the table.
I am Hassan Kumar. I have a system.
Speak up.
Oh,
There are mics around here to pick you up, but the acoustics are not great, so.
I'm Christopher Kumar, I'm working for Working Voice.
Victor Marcellin, Google.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm an editor, but Sevanaki from the Google.
Mike, what is your class?
Renan from Pathlight.
Kumar Duke, one of the co-chairs from Google.
Magnus Westlund, the co-chair, Ericsson.
When there's no scenery.
Here's a hands-on DTC with Brian Hartley, DTC.
To you that
Michael Hostan, CDN77.
Studio from MOQ.
Ali Begakos University.
Is there anyone online that will introduce themselves? I haven't been able to scrub who's online and who's not. Feel free to just turn on your audio if you want to.
Steven Riedel, Paramount.
Okay, is that it? Anyone else? All right, moving on. This is the IETF Notewell. I think most of you have seen it before, but actually some of us are new, so maybe not. This describes sort of the intellectual property implications of you attending this IETF meeting, as well as outlines code of conduct considerations. So if you're not familiar with it, because you do IETF one way or another, I encourage you to search for some of those terms. IETF Notebook will get you where you need to go search-wise, and then you can read on some of those considerations. All right, meeting logistics. For the first time, thanks to the efforts of the MeetEcho team and the Cloudflare team, we have MeetEcho support for this hybrid interim meeting. So many of you are familiar with MeetEcho, I would assume. So by simply logging in, you sign blue sheets to indicate your attendance here. If you are here, so we are going to use MeetEcho for shows of hands for the technical chat, etc. In terms of the queue, we're going to try to allow conversation to be a little more naturalistic in the room when that is happening. And if you are remote, go ahead and enter the queue by pressing the raise hand button there on your screen, and we as chairs will monitor that and slide you into the conversation where it seems appropriate. When the queue gets long, in the past we've had a whiteboard and I've started writing names on the board. That is when we'll move to the MeetEcho queue when that happens. So at some point we'll just call it to do that. And again, this is new. We haven't done this before, so forgive our growing pains, but our plan is to then move to MeetEcho queue. So for that reason, and if for no other reason, you should join. You should log in MeetEcho for that purpose. You can do that on your laptop and go to the data tracker page that has. There's an upcoming meetings page which has a link for this, as well as the in the MOQ group meetings page. Or you can simply use your device to scan that QR code, and you'll get a light version of the client that has the key functionality that won't give you the video and stuff you don't need because you're here. Those of you who are remote, this is exactly like attending a regular IETF meeting with that small exception remotely, with the small exception that we're going to have this different queue dynamic, at least at first. If you are logged in here, please mute your speaker. If you are remote, if you do decide to speak in this meeting, first be aware that there's a bit of latency in unmuting your device, so give yourself like a second or so before you start talking. Secondly, the echo cancellation properties are not great, so if you are going to speak, it would be great if you had some sort of headset so that it didn't just echo back to the channel. If you do not do that, we have to mute you pretty aggressively to make anything legible. Any questions about all this? All right, let's move on. This is the agenda for today. We received many agenda requests. Not all of them were satisfied. We certainly today, the focus is absolutely on MOQ issues. We have an aspiration to have the last call in Vienna. We'll see if we get there, but part of that is just burning down the issues that the editors have on our plate right now. And almost all of these items are relevant to that. As mentioned a few minutes ago, there is a fire drill at 10:15, and we're going to use that opportunity to take a break. Do we have to leave the building?
No.
We just have to just it's loud.
It takes a short amount of time, but there's an alarm on different parts of the building at different times that we do not know how to work.
Okay. Seems like a not conducive time to have a meeting and a very conducive time to go get coffee. So you don't have to go outside or anything, but this is a great time to break. You can have a sidebar conversation, get some caffeine, do whatever you need to do. Let's see, I'm not going to read this entire thing to you, but at 11:45, allegedly we'll have a catered lunch. If it turns out to be late, we're going to move some things up, but that should be straightforward. And during that catered lunch, Tong Yu is here. He has the demo of a diagnostic tool he developed. Everything is optional. You're adults, you can leave anytime you want, but I just want to say it's sort of like super optional. If you want, the lunch is also an opportunity to do sidebar conversations stuff. If you're interested in the presentation, you're very welcome to sit here and listen to this talk, but I don't want to discourage the other things that happen at lunch that are productive. Okay, we are going to take a bit of a break at 2:30, not to have fun, but to relax, but to talk about our next hybrid interim, which will be in September, early October. Try to nail down at least a week to have it, but I did deconflict everyone's calendars, and then maybe talk a little bit about potential venues. Go on another break, and then we'll close it out with some more issues. I do want to call out Mike English's presentation towards the end of the day. You may recall that a number of months ago we started a DOS design team to kind of think through these issues. This is the first, I don't know if it's last, but certainly the first readout from them. It was kind of to put it in a draft, and we'll talk, and this mainly to call your attention to that, and maybe talk a little bit about, prepare you for further discussions about the position of that document after you've had a chance to read it. Okay, would anyone like to bash today's agenda? Yes.
I see the first item is for my co-editor. I didn't see him. And I have his slides, although I have slides on this topic which I can present. I think he wants to do that. So
Maybe he's in France.
he could be in France. Does that mean?
Is Mo here?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
That's only, I mean, we could do Mo, and then we could just do 15 minutes of random issues. And Mr. Shuffleton's fine, I don't know.
well, we have to do, well, why don't we,
Or I can just do 30 minutes of issues and we can do multiple subscriptions.
this was a rookie mistake for me to schedule me in first. Okay. Let's,
Rookie mistake.
yeah, let's have Mo, let's have Mo go first. And then we'll break in the middle of whatever comes next. So that will either be concurrent subscribe or joining fetch, depending on whether I'm here.
Okay.
The slides are shared from me, technical, so.
Can you guys just do it?
Yes.
So actually, so there's another presentation option here. This desk was actually somewhere else a moment ago, or yesterday when we were talking about this. If you want to come up here, and you don't have to.
That's about the mic.
I wouldn't.
Oh, is that the problem?
Oh, we can put something on, yeah, exactly.
I can solve that problem. Okay.
You want presenters to go in a circle?
I'm not gonna, want is a strong word, But the idea here is that if you're sitting here, you can view the chat pretty effectively if you want. You can look at the slides. Your face will be facing both many of us and the camera. So this is something you can choose to do. If you want to do it from your seat, I'm not going to control how you do your
So,
presentation.
can I flip with this or no?
Uh,
Is it Mideco flipper? Or no?
I don't know. That's probably not a minute.
I'll just ask you guys.
We can do it for you.
We are not, yeah, but I guess we're gonna have to at least browse through the rest of these.
Yeah, I mean, you're not quite yet mobile. You're welcome to sit there if you like, because you're first up. Unless Ian comes.
Ian was actually me, I'll take this 7 minutes ago and say.
Okay. All right, well, that's, we'll see how that goes. All right. Okay, this is tomorrow's agenda. It's a little more eclectic. There will be some MOQ discussion, particularly anything sparked from that was discussed overnight. We are spending a little bit of time talking about the top end thing, which we, I don't want to say resolved, but we had at least an interim resolution on a couple of meetings ago. And then for a number of reasons, we're going to talk about some of the other adopted drafts on Friday afternoon. One of those reasons is that some of our editors are leaving early tomorrow, our MOQ editors rather. Nevertheless, that is the agenda for Friday. Does anyone like to batch that agenda now, or should we just wait until we get to tomorrow when maybe things will change anyway?
We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, we will rebatch it tomorrow because God knows what's going to happen today. And I think, as I mentioned, I think our priority really is to get through MOQ issues today, this meeting. And so if the task tends to fill the time allotted, so I think Magnus and I need to be alert to when we're kind of spinning our wheels and not getting anywhere. But if we feel like things are progressing well and productively, some of these other items might drop off in the idea of getting to issue 0 on MOQ. Okay. Here are the as time. These are some of the presentations that we were not able to allocate time to. Well, the overflow is just because we didn't give Mo quite as much time as he thought he needed. Nevertheless, those are there. Things run extremely quickly. And then lastly, here are the upcoming dates. We've got a couple of virtual interims. Did we already watch this? Do a lot more? Like those still proposed? I can't remember. Is that since it's still open? What?
I get blocked.
Anyway, certainly there's been an email proposing these dates. I'm not 100% sure what the I can't remember what the status is of the consensus call. Nevertheless, our plan is to do that at 9:30 Pacific, which is what 16:30 UTC on those days. They're both Mondays. As I've said many times, as chairs, we are wide open to hearing any sort of feedback about those meetings. We kind of settle on that time as a time that works for respondents to the group. But if Mondays are like horrible, or 60:30 UTC is horrible, or there's some other problem where we're running virtual interviews, please let the chairs know. We are very open to feedback, and we get very little of it.
Yeah, but so far we haven't received any feedback, and the date we set to comment on this was 8th of June, so I think these dates are set.
And we requested 3 sessions in Vienna. We'll see how that goes. I would anticipate one of them being Friday afternoon, because that's usually how the ISG punishes somebody who asks for 3 sessions. I've asked for not Monday morning because I have a personal matter that's going to cause me to arrive on Monday morning. So use that, do what you want with that information. We'll see if that's honored or not.
Yeah, I mean the first agenda will come out probably in a few weeks, and then we'll lock down like 2 weeks down or 3 weeks before the meeting. So.
Can I just, I believe sexualized also draft deadline, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yes.
So just from at least from my team perspective, we do plan to kind of draft on that day, which will be an odd number, which will be not an implementation target most likely, which should have many resolutions on what we discussed.
So you may have noted that there's an interim report in tomorrow morning's agenda, and we use that time to maybe get a sense of if people want to move to 19, because people are just so done with 18. I anticipate that's not the case, but we'll find out tomorrow. Maybe it'll be an event week. Okay, enough of me jabbering. Is Ian in the room? No. Okay, Mo, you're up.
Yeah.
Can you run the slides?
Let's see. This is public retreats.
I guess we're gonna have to do this here.
So this is the recently adopted object range filters. It's in PR 1518, and there was an earlier PR 1401 on this. Next slide. Recap the motivation. There's video keyframe scrubbing for trick play. Object ID 0 is a natural thing for that. Video base layer extraction, subgroup 0 is a simple thing for that. Let's skip the multi-stream fetch because they could be better solutions. Specific encodings, if you want to filter on a property, like the codec is H264 or something. And then non-media examples, you have critical alerts and log, you can use a priority filter for that. So that's the use cases. Next slide. This is the one pager of the entire design, everything you need to know about the object range filters. There's a setup option that controls it. Max filter ranges, the default is 0, so it's off by default unless you negotiate this. And that limits the total number of ranges that you can have in all the filter types for any given subscription or fetch. These are parameters that can appear in subscribe tracks, request update, publish OK, and fetch. And there's 4 of them, and we'll talk about maybe striking one and adding another in a minute. And I wanted to stress, because I thought the previous talk was going to touch on this, the need to do multiple subscriptions on a single track was originally motivated by filters causing 2 different subscribers having disjoint filters. And the publisher, the relay publisher that's receiving that has to say, wow, how do I reconcile these 2 disjoint filters? I have to subscribe to the entire track upstream. So to avoid that, we thought about having multiple subscriptions. Instead, we added what's in bold there, the set concept, to basically allow a relay to aggregate all the filters from different subscribers into multiple sets, and then they're ordered together. So the relay does not have to do multiple subscriptions, even if they're different from the underlying subscribers downstream. So I wanted to stress that aspect. Set is basically ordering everything in all those different sets. Within a set, you and all the filters.
Okay, that's a clarification.
Sure.
So the set relay need not have to do that, right?
No, it doesn't.
Still have multiple sets, which if it wants.
And individual subscribers could use this too. If you wanted to, have a certain combination or this other combination endpoint could do that too.
I'm not sure I understand, Sue, that's your question. When you say it really doesn't have to do, what are you asking?
Like if multiple subscribers come with different things,
Yes,
set will let you put all this together in one stream.
yes.
Can relay, based on his information it has, can still make multiple subscriptions.
That depends on what Neil was going to talk about.
The current draft forbids multiple subscriptions to the same track in the same session.
Yeah.
Okay, so your 2 options are either use these sets on one, or remove all the filters, receive all the objects, and do the filtering of.
The PR says relays should aggregate and propagate filters upstream. So, okay, but for other reasons, that's before we had this. If the multiple subscriptions passes, maybe relax that wording.
I guess my question is, if we do multiple subscriptions, would we remove set?
No, I think this is a very valuable concept without any relation to multiple subscriptions. Because this fundamentally allows a subscriber to express a richer thing. You could say, this temperature or this pressure, this codec, or if it's just a small frame. So
Okay.
it's fundamentally new capability within subscribers.
You want this regardless of that, okay.
Okay. And they all just follow the same pattern. You specify the set and the range. Except for the property filter, you also have to specify the property type that you're filtering on.
clarification question, what you just said. I can't do a set where it's like a subgroup filter or an object identity filter. It has to be a set of a given type of filter.
No, a set is a number. Everything with that number is all ANDed together.
Should all
Everything with different numbers are all OR together.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So a set is not just like a sequence of ranges or something. Okay.
It's like set ID.
yeah. Okay, that's the entire design on one pager. Is everybody clear or anything that? All right, next
By the way,
slide.
Mo, there's a little timer running in the left window there, in case you're curious.
Next slide. These are just some examples. We ran through this in the virtual interim, but basically you can do all the things, the use cases before. This is just showing how you would actually encode those use cases. And the strike throughs are because we're doing delta encoding. So that's the original number and then the delta encoded number after it. And on the right, it just shows that even though we're only doing inclusive ranges, you can still do all the relational operations just by using the inclusive ranges. So you can do equal, less than or equal to, greater than, in between, inclusive, exclusive, all those, not equal to, all those combinations with sets. Okay.
Thanks.
Next slide. All right. 3 issues that I wanted to bring up. I wanted to make sure everybody understood. First one is that the property filter, this is where you have an object property equal to some value. The property filter can also filter published messages in the current PR. This is something that Alan brought up because he missed it. So I want to make sure everybody understood this and didn't miss it and agrees with it. This is what the exact text says in the PR, that the property filter can work on both track and object properties. It has no way of knowing, right? You don't know if something is a track or object property by the number. So if it's a track property, that added a new capability to this filter because now it can filter the published message itself. So that means if you put this in subscribed tracks, if you put a property filter in subscribed tracks, you can filter the published messages that come back for that namespace and only get the property type that you wanted. So for example, if you only want to get a namespace with all of the encodings for a ladder of a title. So you had, all the different bit rates, codecs, everything, like in a YouTube folder, that all of those encodings could be properties, and you could filter track properties. You could filter on one specific track property. So codec is AV1, for example. And that would actually filter out the published message. In addition to all the objects, you obviously wouldn't get any objects because you wouldn't even get the publish. So I just want to make sure that the text is clear and that the concept itself is also agreed. And Alan came back and said the text is clear, but he missed it the first time, so.
I have a question about how the interaction, so let's say I subscribe tracks and I have a filter for a property and a publisher comes to the publisher that doesn't have that set as a track property. Some properties are both can be in the track or overridden in an object.
That's
So in
right.
this case, if it's not in the track,
Okay.
but was in a later object,
So
the
you'll get the
subscriber's
publish-
never going to see it.
So first you'll get the published message because
The publisher didn't pass the filter,
the published did not pass the filter.
but maybe a subsequent object would have.
Yeah, so no, that's what this is clarifying, is that the published message itself would get filtered out. And if the track property does not pass the filter, no objects in the track will be delivered.
And you're okay with that, because there's other places where the behavior says, well, it wasn't in the track. Like if I just did a subscribe, that's only filtering on the object properties and not on the published track properties.
That's right, because it's too late and you've already subscribed.
I guess, yeah. It wouldn't make any sense for it to say like subscribe.
Somebody says okay.
It doesn't match.
You can't, you can't say not okay.
I'm just saying there's a subtle behavior difference, because sometimes people think about the parameters in subscribe tracks as pretend that I subscribe with these parameters. But this is not like that, because this is
This is
there's a
filtering out.
difference between subscribing with this and subscribing tracks. They produce 2 different results. That's all I want to make sure everyone understands. Okay.
All right, so everybody's good on this? This is not unexpected functionality. This is not controversial functionality. Everybody likes this?
I think this is reasonable, but I agree with Alan that it is subtly different in a way that, like, I think is utterly implementable.
Unimplementable?
Utterly, completely implementable. It is not a problem. It is not a technical concern.
Yes.
I think it works fine, but it's kind of similar but different. And
Yes.
like, I think we could have interrupt problems if we don't like spell it out like really clearly, for sure.
And this PR predated the track properties, so this was just like an accident that, you know, something all of a sudden it could filter published messages because we added track properties later. So it was, we either could not support track properties at all, which made no sense. It's the core utility of the filters is to do something like that. So it naturally has to filter published message too. All right, so I think we're settled on this one.
Yeah, it seems like a logical way to structure this. Like, I don't want random objects that didn't get published for.
Yeah, that won't work.
Yes, track alias is gonna be a problem.
All right, the next one is whether or not we should remove the object ID filter. The main purpose of it is for scrubbing keyframes, so you can quickly get iframes from a track by using object ID 0. Now that's often true, but that's not always true. So you have to know that the encoding is actually supporting that it's guaranteeing keyframes in object 0. Sometimes you can have leading pictures, you can have temporal scalability structures that don't put the first frame as the iframe. So that was not an ironclad thing to always be guaranteed to work anyway. An alternative to using object ID 0, if you don't have the object ID filter at all, is to put them on a separate subgroup, put the keyframe on a subgroup. The advantage of that is now you can have different priorities for different subgroups. Now the iframe can have its own higher priority than everything else. Another alternative would be just to mark the frames themselves, mark the keyframes with the property. So you can say, property frame type equals keyframe. And some apps may choose to do that using something like frame marking or some other custom markings. So there are other ways that keyframe scrubbing could be implemented. And it's not clear that the original vision of object ID 0 was ironclad to work anyway. So my recommendation is to actually go ahead and remove the object ID filter and use the other alternatives that exist, unless people have a really good use case for the object ID filter for something else.
More of a clarification.
Yeah.
So is this something, an extra filter is more work, or if not the case, I don't think so, removing it adds much than leaving it there, because the AND sets that you have a combination, I can basically create, ask for multiple object IDs, even though it's not the right, based on how my encoder is basically set up, and ask to scrub that way too. It's not saying object ID 0 filters.
Right, if people need to filter object IDs, then we should keep it. If they don't, then Victor originally raised this and made me think, yeah, there's other ways that you keep from straying.
More people raise their hands. Anyone else who's going to raise your hand, just use the tool. But you four don't need to. We just all simultaneous, but Colin, I guess.
I don't know really. I think I agree with video. It did make me think in audio, all of those things might increase the size of the audio a little bit to use them. So it may be if we're doing scalable audio stuff, maybe there's an argument that we want to keep this, but it seems like such an easy thing to do that I don't see any harm to it one way or another, but I don't have a solid use case. So just slight random input that I sort of lean towards N, but it's
Yeah, I have a strong objection to removing object filter. So your stated use case that it's not always true that object ID 0 carries a keyframe. True, but 98% of the time it is true. It is that way for MSF, which is our adopted streaming format. So the grounds for that 2% of the time I don't need it, therefore I'm going to remove it. To me, it's not a strong argument. My second objection is objects are our atomic unit of transmission. That's what moves the remark. And we're building filters, but then we're not going to build a filter that actually allows us to filter this object. So from Suhas's point of view, I can attach properties to every object, and you're going to filter those. So the level of effort inspecting every object is the same there.
Yeah.
So I think inspecting object ID or a property header is equivalent level of effort, and I'd like to keep.
Can you flip one slide forward? Go to the next slide real quick.
One moment.
I just want to show people, ignore the content of the slide, but at the very bottom, you see the original PR 1401, the table on the bottom. The original PR 1401 had basically almost everything in the object header. It had a location filter, it had the group ID, the subgroup ID, the object ID, priorities, and properties. Almost everything from object headers, the payload link, you could filter on. And we eliminated some of them because people thought it was, you know, unless you could have a really strong use case for it, don't include it. And there was some overlap between the location filter and the group and object filters, because locations are group and object IDs. So that's why we removed the group ID, and we're going to remove the object ID as well, but then we realized, no, we need it for keyframe scrubbing. So that's the rationale for removing it and for why it was kept.
I was curious about the sort of set idea in these filters. I wondered whether it either makes sense to have the set in the other sort of location filters as well, or whether to remove it, because there's a section in the draft that sort of explains about combining all the different kinds of filters, whether that would be a useful thing to include. I don't know whether you thought about that.
You're talking about the location filter or the object ID filter?
Well, in the range filter, you've got this new set concept, but then in the other ones, there's no sort of set concept. So in that way, it sort of felt like maybe that could be useful across the whole lot, or not across any.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the location filter, not the object ID filter, right?
Well, your new proposed filters, yeah.
Yes, the next one, the next slide. Does anybody else have a question about the object ID filter?
Yeah, Wendell.
I would like, I mean, this is my favorite filter.
Okay, so you see,
Yeah, come on, because I mean, we have a very good use case for this. It's
Okay.
like- and so it's very simple, and so the property is, I mean, brought by the publisher, but sometimes the encoder has some ways to build the GOR so that it can work. And it gives this information in the catalog. And so in the catalog, they will say, well, object 0 is a keyframe, so you go this, and if there is no keyframe, you will not use this filter, but if you have this information in the catalog, you will.
Let me turn off your speaker, please.
And there's one way that you can have some extra information, like, well, some objects contains the 3035 marker or something like this, and that case, the subscriber can say, I'm interested in only the object number 15 because I know that they will contain the 30 markers, and I'm only interested in that.
Okay.
So I mean,
There's no harm in keeping it. I mean, it's already in the PR, so it's no work to keep it. It's just a simplification that if it's useful to people, let's keep it.
I
Settle
entered the
for
queue,
those.
I entered the queue just to say, as an individual, obviously, I don't like alternative one. I think like having subgroups. I think it's the one we had to express dependencies, and just like making it impossible to express dependencies in keyframe is a real bummer. But I guess this is a dead issue anyway. Also, as chair, I'd like to say that Magnus and I talked about this is very productive. So we're going to immediately fall behind schedule and run through your slides and discuss these issues to question. Okay. All right.
So, and the conclusion here is, do not remove it. Keep it as is. No one is thinking it is.
The last point is, the next slide, the last point is the location filter. So like I mentioned, we had the location filter in the original PR. It replaced the subscription filters, the enum of, you know, all the different 4 types, and now maybe expanded to 8 types. It replaced all of those with a location filter that looks just like the other filters. It was removed because we wanted to make the PR simpler. Just less text. Most of the text of the original PR was the location filter because it removed a ton of stuff about the subscription filters. So it was the largest part of the diff. So that's what was removed from 1518, not really for a technical reason. So recommendation now is, in light of other things that are happening, which we'll talk about in Alan's section, it makes a lot of sense to go back to that location filter, because we see that this enum of ugly subscription filters just keeps growing, and then they can be replaced by what the app really wants, just a range of objects, range of locations. So that's the recommendation, is to go back to the location filter that was in 1401, and it looks just like all the other filters, has a link, and the one difference is it doesn't have a set. It has a start and an end, and it doesn't have a set, and it doesn't have multiple ranges. That can be relaxed if you wanted multiple ranges. There's another issue somewhere else that says, can we have multiple ranges for fetch? So if you wanted that, you can make it like the other filters and have multiple ranges. Or we could keep it simple and just have a single range. And it works for both relative and absolute. So if you only put a start group and nothing else, that's a relative location filter. And it's relative to the next group, so you can say next group or current group or in groups back. So the same thing that's happening with fill fetch, or replacement for joining fetch. You can do all those same things with this much simpler syntax, and it aligns with all the other filters. So that's the final third point. And for cleanness, we can do it as another PR instead of putting it in the filter PR. But it's in line with all the other filters. It would look exactly like all the other filters. It would just remove a lot more text, just like 1401 removed a ton of text about subscription filters. It would make the diff much bigger again.
Well, just to be clarified, it can do absolute start and ends as well, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, if you just put the start and end location, so if you just put real, all 4 real numbers in there, then you're going to get an absolute range. If you want relative, then you only put a start group. Relative will give you anything from the next group to the current group to previous groups.
Thank you.
So I think when we started all these filters, we started with enumeration because that was simple, and we had we tried to experiment, and more use cases came in, more implementation we did. It's been very clear that we decided to add more to the enumeration to achieve all those things. Like I'm not sure which way we go, but I suspect saying one way to do that would be my recommendation. If that means you do filtering and you find all these kind of filters on top of what you have as mathematical properties, that's simple and we can go to that one. Or if we decide to add more enumeration, I think we should do only that. What I would not be kind of supporting very much is that having 2 ways to do same things.
Oh no, yeah. If we add the location filter, you would have to replace the subscription filters.
Okay.
You cannot add a location filter on top of the subscription filters. It has to replace all the subscription filters.
Right. Like if someone wants to implement filtering, there's one way to do, but that would be good simplification. Either way, whichever design you pick.
Yeah. We could talk about this more in the Alan section if we want, because it's related to fill fetch and what the app is really trying to do.
Well,
Yeah, I support re-adding it. And for the same argument as prior, it's our object model, the core IDs are group ID and object ID. And this gives us the ability to filter on that. Irrespective of the use cases we know today, future use cases using this transport, I think would find this really useful.
Alan?
So I think it's separable. So, and I think it's somewhat tied with other things. So I'm open to the idea. I just want to give it maybe a little bit more time to think about how that intersects with what we're doing with joining fetch that's different, how it might interact with fetch. And anyways, I think there's a lot of complex combinations and sets as well. So like I think it just needs a little bit, this might need a little bit more thought before we try to do it here.
All right, next slide. This is just summary.
Are you trying to run the queue still, Victor?
Oh, and I wanted to shout out to Victor, who's had this idea last year.
Okay, so I'm sorry, does this apply to fetch as well as subscribe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I would need to think about this more. So a long time ago, we decided to have subscribe end only on group boundaries for like stream termination reasons. And this seems to be sort of flattening that. I know we need it for fetch. I would like to think about the implications of that. And I mean, we can make this complicated, have it different for subscribe and fetch, which would be gross. But I don't know what to say exactly, but that's my only concern.
If you wanted to impose a restriction, you could. If you wanted to impose the same restrictions we have today, you could say you could only put, this in the, you can't put an object, non-zero or something like that. If you're trying to say that you have to put it on an object 0 as your termination point or object.
UN64 max. Yeah, we could, but then then there's different rules for fetch and subscribe, so that's gross too. I think these are 2 gross solutions, and we need to I just want to raise that flag and I need to think about it, Victor.
Yeah, first of all, I very important the slice and edge case, but we also, back when we had the edge case, we were very against doing things like extending the ranges. We had a very restrictive approach, and later we realize that this is painful and you can do whatever you want with filters, and if it leads you to an inbound state where you do not get every object you want, and that's what happens. So from that perspective, I also not concerned. So my 2 points is, one, this is probably better than what's in the draft because this is easier to understand. And 2, whatever you do, please do not put it into the same PR as the other filters, because this is, it changes a lot of text.
Yeah, yes.
Carl?
I mean, I like this in the sense too, is I think that like implementers that are using this protocol, this is what they'd expect to have. It's like, just back to Bill's comment. But just to add on what Martin, I think when we had problems with this before, we didn't have like the ways of marking that an object was the end of the group and things like that. And so I think the reasons that caused us to not want to do that in the past, we've solved other ways now. So agree, it needs some more thought. But like, let's say you have a filter that doesn't give you the whole group, but only gives you half the group, and you receive it. Nowadays, when you got the last object that the filter gave you, you would know whether it was the end of the group when you had the whole group or not, which you didn't before, right?
So it's the end of the subgroup. That's
Sorry, end of the subgroup.
Yeah, so right now, I think the only signal we have is spin.
No, you have to reliably reset at.
Right, okay, so, well, all right, so this is what we have to work out. So like, as it stands today, in a subscribe, if you get a spin, you realize that the previous object is the end of the subgroup. So the 2 ways to do this are either require reliable reset at, or if your filter ends in the middle of a group, you have to like know that you don't know what the end of the subgroup is.
That's painful.
But you're the one putting that filter on in the middle of this.
No, so you know that, you
know what you're doing.
It's just, like, you have to, like I said, I mean, this is not gonna break the protocol, but like, but we are now saying, so like, there's this whole game of like, when do I know when the subgroup is over? And Finn solves that under most cases, but now there's this edge case where when a filter ends mid-group, like, you do not know, and you have to like flag that somehow.
Right.
And that's okay, like, I'm
Yeah,
sure it's fine, it's just something we're using that is, and it's probably less gross than having like a different filter for fetch versus subscribe. So I think especially now that we have like combined doing fetch or subscribe fetch filters, basically, right? So I mean, we'll put this dissertation because like I think we should do this, but there is a subtle change in what you can learn as a subscriber because of this change.
I think that edge might be kind of sharp, and then it's a very subtle distinction, both for a publisher to know what to do correctly and for a subscriber to know how to do it incorrectly.
Well, I mean, we could do reliable reset at, which has
people want to hard that on it, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But the thing is, you have to deal with that case anyway, right? Like, even if you don't do this, you have cases where a stream ends and where a stream for some reason or another got ended in the middle of the group. And the receiver has to be able to deal with that correctly with the correct signal.
Or if the receiver has a reset in the fin.
today, the sign is very clear. It's a fin, then the last thing before the fin was the last in that subgroup from the OP.
Got it. So problem solved. And you already have to implement that.
If I use the
the only point I'm trying to make is you already have to implement the thing that you think is a sharp edge.
well, I think what I'm saying is that it depends on.
Well, no. So the point is, you have to treat a fin as a reset in terms of this thing, which is like it's not hard to code, but it means you have no way of knowing what the end of the subgroup is.
When you use the filter.
Yes, when you use the filter, which you can it hurts when I do that. Don't do that. So like maybe people shouldn't just do that. But that is what we've done to ourselves here, and it's fine. I still think this is the right choice. Okay. I'm the last one in the queue, so let's move on. And we have like 2 minutes.
Let's conclude then on the previous one. Yes.
This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion.
Break.
Yeah.
This is the conclusion on everything. So I think we have agreement on the first one. Everybody's okay with the property filter as is, the way it filters published messages, no problem. We decided not to remove the object ID filter. We're going to keep it. It has some utility. I think I hear we would like to see a PR on re-adding the location filter.
But definitely.
Separate PR for it. And then they will support for it, but also for it. And yeah.
Okay.
So PR, and then people can review that and comment on that.
And then the final point is 1518, it still has the top end filter in there as well. So hopefully, pending the end of this week's discussions, we can figure out if there's still no consensus on keeping that or not. If there's not, then we have to remove it from 1518 and put it into a separate PR or draft for both.
So in the minute we have before break, my computer decided it hit me to go a couple meetings ago, and so I missed the consensus call. We decided, what was the result? This was your consensus call that you ran, Magnus. Was the consensus that track filters were in, but the top end particular thing was not in MOQ?
I'm confused about that consensus call question. The current PR, the track filter is the top end filter. The word track filter itself is used for the top end filter.
So there's no track filter that's not top end.
I think the confusion is what the first thing on this slide, the property filter and filter published, is what some people are calling a track filter.
Yeah,
But
okay.
not a top end filter. That's not what's in the PR.
Got you. Okay, so property filters are in, top end filters are not yet in. Okay.
But I'm skeptical that's what people thought, because that subtle nuance, I don't think anybody in this room.
I think I agree.
You even missed it.
Yes, I think that people are, but now we're in agreement that we want object ID range filters and we want the property filter unpublished.
People said it at the virtual interim that had the consensus call. People said that they wanted the concept of track filtering, period. Whether or not it was top end specific, they wanted eventually MOQ to have a general, filtering of a bunch of tracks. Maybe not the top tracks of but just in general. So that's, I think people were saying track filter was. That's not written up anywhere. There's no PR that mentions anything like that.
Okay, so I think the current, all right, I don't know if you want to do another consensus call about this on the list to make sure we got this nailed down. But we'll talk about it over the break. Yeah. I think the current.
We need another consensus call, but I think it's clear that the previous consensus call is very unclear to everyone what it meant, and we shouldn't do too much with it, right?
But I would also like to get more information after the end of this Friday, because we hope to show more data and understand what the problems are. Is it, I heard from Alan, maybe maturity, I hear complexity. So we want to understand and then address.
Right, so the current state, as I understand it, is all the filters, including property filters, but not top end, are in short order going to MOQ, which is why there is a PR for it. And the top end's current status is extension. But like all extensions, it's break time. Like all extensions, if everyone gets satisfied, I'm sure we can drop it. That's the current state.
I think I heard it's in just a minute.
All right, that's break time for 15 minutes. Thank you, Mo.
The fire system is about to be tested.
Guys, the first one saw you had agenda, supposed to go for agenda. Actually, the slides was 5. Same thing, so.
It's on the overflow.
I also have to.
Did the agenda change from yesterday to today?
Yes.
It did. So was my slot for top and track filter pushed over?
We put it earlier because we just was high.
Three, I was on there. Let me see now. Yeah, but there's no time slots that are discontinuous.
No, you're actually
Oh, I did this today.
Yeah, meeting out there is like.
Oh.
You guys play we have this big, well, I mean, it's not going to be.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, we'll settle, yeah, but I think September early October, but if you're.
Late September, I have IBC conference, I have,
We're feeling this.
RTC conference, I have,
In before or after.
I would do all I can to motivate for. Yeah.
I'll put that on the table.
Well, and this stuff,
Yeah, I think one more. It's noticed, but how we get
I haven't seen that.
I would rather go in Calgary than.
I think so, it makes sense to sort of.
I don't know if I'm making trouble.
We can't even hear what they did. Move back.
I like Federer's give.
You also have this big.
I don't know, wants to come to you. I mean,
Yeah, but you see it.
With the issues, right?
Yeah, all the year, but the go back to the which you kept tonight. We needed a bit of that flexibility.
It's coming over to chat.
But this is an hour and 20 minutes. We'll do
Okay, yeah.
45 minutes of today. 45 minutes. Is this the one, is this the deck that has like 30 slides from Alan about random issues?
Well, it's oh, we're gonna have to have this offline.
If I can get a plug-in over there, I can probably finish this slide. How many? 1 hour. 1 hour.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's like tree, there are trees.
So what we could do is, we could use the explanation, this is based on such as.
This is old school?
And it's up to the. Like, for instance, should we put a version in, when you say, I want to put it in, you say, I want to.
All matters are towards decision one, like shoddy and terrible.
And then we can go over to that's why we
Your village is different than my village.
Yeah, so I'm trying to actually look at.
We either.
Say I wanted.
Or we just.
I would say. He's gonna give, in a 2-second group, he's gonna get, 1 second of video onto.
I would like to answer this one.
Onto the quick step. Let's get the plus CPR buffers, so CPR's they stop, except you change the thing, it's not, so it's gonna act like congestion. It's gonna be exactly like, it's gonna be filmed, all those options. So
So my point was going into natural media, because in TTS,
You want to be able to prioritize things, things that are normally, you don't have any congestion, you get ready to slow, so your officers go out on the wire filter. So you can zero, how many different layers? Zero has all the base layers, except for one, has all the base layers you're supposed to have. So you're gonna get object zero, zero, with congestion, now I'm gonna get only something that is zero, right? I'm only gonna get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 1. Once it drains that entire circle, right, it's gonna go back and just start delivering 1, 3, 5, 6, 8. So it's not delivering because it drains after the entire job is finished. So you know what, like that, I'm gonna place 0, 1, 2, I can't because I had 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, wow. And then I get 1, 3, 5. Like, how many times? Because there's created congestion. They see like, oh my God, why are and this case, that's what you're looking when things are live and there is actually no congestion. There's no congestion. I'm just looking at why do I lose my hands? I don't want to lose this. In other words, you found the real problem. See what I mean? I'm 0, 1.
I understand. This is the problem I have to tell you want to start with things later.
Yes. So that's a period. Yes.
So okay, if you do like, let's say you have to layer that every yeah, but you wouldn't be able to
so far away. By seeing everything was attached, now that's the opportunity. And then his
my argument is like
whiteboard. A great experience.
This is also. You know, we're trying to walk down through
Individual subjects for each.
How secure objects relate to.
That's coming down first. Yes.
You want to transfer to secure, so that you want to get
This is something. This is the type of.
and I have some pieces of my team that understand. Rather than, because our document is super light.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to tonight again. Victor, we're starting. No, we're going to do the. Trying to get back on schedule here.
It's a little out.
Yeah, I'll try to draw something.
Wait, what? Do you want to do joining fetch first?
I don't care.
Can you throw it again, real quick?
Not easily, no. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Okay, just as a PSA, I figured out how to get decaf coffee. There's a little container next to the tea of like powder, and you can mix that with hot water if you want decaf coffee. I tend to. Just FYI.
We
want to join the fetch first?
Subscribe after.
So you guys have the next hour and a half, however you want to split it up, that's fine. Okay, we're going to join the fetch now.
Yeah. Okay. Let me drop your doing.
I would be thrilled for you to drive.
It should be written.
Did you upload was the latest deck approved? I have no idea.
I don't know. Probably, I didn't approve it. Did you approve it? What? The latest deck?
How late?
I don't know, sometime today.
I approved it when I arrived here in the morning at around 9.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I didn't change it. Okay, this talks about 1642, the PR, and so as you recall, we talked to a bunch in Boulder. We had the interim on Rewind. It didn't go very well. Ian and I tried to understand what does this group want. And so we sent out the survey. I thank everyone who responded. So I put these results on the list, but the general consensus, or I don't use that word, the results of the survey was that nobody said joining fetches failed functionally, and 6 out of 9 people said that they could live with the current design, including 2 that said they don't even use joining fetch in their use case. But if you look at it the other way, there's a majority of people who are unhappy. 4 says. Is this how you object to my slides?
Attention, please. Please leave the building immediately. Do not use the lifts. Please leave the building by the nearest fire exit.
But they said take no action.
Is that real?
Attention,
it does work, but 8 out of 12 people either says they really don't like it or it's not working for them. People said they wanted to spend more time to get this right. So if you averaged the number of months, people were just like, I would rather the spec take this much longer. People want to spend some time to get it right. There was a strong majority that said, if we change anything, we have to rip joining fetch out. Like they want, and it's like, the must not was you have to keep the functionality, but everyone was like, don't add more and have joining fetch in there. If you do anything.
Is that a strong majority?
Okay, maybe not, 9 15, what is it, 60%? I don't know. Okay.
Barely, not even consensus.
Okay, and then I apologize, I just used the, okay, and then but nobody was saying like we have to completely remove like the fetch data plane for everything. So what am I talking about? So we looked at all this feedback and we wrote a PR that has 2 different separable pieces of functionality in it. One of them is delivery changes for the current group, and the other one is expanding the capabilities of subscribe so that you can subscribe and things that will trigger things in the past to be delivered to you, which is not something that we do. There's sub bullets there, which is
The fire alarm test is now complete. Please respond to all future fire alarms.
got it. Okay, so one of them is like, and it ties in with what I was talking about, like how many filter types do we need and how do we spell them on the wire? And there's a few different options. And if we allow subscribe to
The fire alarm test.
This is where your fire alarm is going down.
Okay. There's a possibility that there's an option that we could remove fetch, which might be a spicy topic. So we're going to talk about these things separately. Okay, so since we introduced fetch, like you have groups, somewhere you have largest objects, almost certainly in the middle of a group somewhere. That group in which it is in the middle of is what you would call the group. Everything after the largest object can be returned to you via subscribe. Actually, things before that can be returned via subscribe to if you set your filter right. But everything, if you really want stuff back there, you got to send a fetch. So what 1642 proposes is that like you can get everything in the current group via subscribe. But anything before the current group is still delivered fetchishly.
This is not completely true, right? This is true for the data plane, meaning that the blue one is sent with subscribe unit or resource training. But what is in green will be sent with the field fetch, but you can get what is in green from a subscribe.
If it's like a late arriving object?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I realize.
So
this is
confusing.
Okay, ignore the pictures if they're confusing.
Okay.
I can't undo that. Okay. So why do people want current group delivery? So one of them is like when you subscribe, when you're trying to get the current group, it's coming via 2 different data planes, via your subscribe plane and your fetch plane, and that's sort of like weird. There's head of line blocking issues with there could be low priority subgroups in your current group, which fetching them is going to block the higher priority ones. And also if there's missing datagrams or something that will cause your fetch implementation to be slower. There's a priority version issue that Luke filed, which I can't exactly remember the details of, but I remember that it seemed like it had some real cases that couldn't be presently expressed. And another thing we've heard is this is joining the current group is the most common operation, and it's annoying that you have to do it with 2 different groups.
Alan, I scooch about 6 inches forward so you're on camera.
Better?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
I don't like the most common operation.
Yeah.
You can say that it's
Okay.
common operation, but not the most.
I was going to say, let's not do any clarifying questions because I'm going to go through 4 or 5 slides, and I'm definitely not taking I don't like your proposal until we get to discussion.
I do want to ask a clarifying question about what you just said though, because you said something that sounded the opposite. You said can you explain which one of the solutions say more about the head of line blocking problem here?
Okay.
Number one.
If
what you said sounded the opposite of what I remember.
In the current thing, let's say I have 2 subgroups, high priority and low priority, and for whatever reason, the low priority one has delivery timeouted from the hub church relay. So my cache has a bunch of holes. I I have an entire high priority subgroup, but they come every other object, and so I have just as many holes in my cache. If I join and fetch that group, it'll give me the first object and say, oh, this is missing. I need to go ask upstream to give me this low priority thing. Even though the fetch part of it is blocked. Yeah. Okay, so how does it work? Current group delivery. So it's, objects in the current group can be delivered via subgroups and datagrams. The publisher has to serve from the beginning of the group from its cache, or via an upstream subscription, or via fetch. Like the publisher needs to respond. It's got to know that it's starting subgroups with the actual first object that was published by the OP. Once it's caught up to live, then the live objects just keep coming on the same streams. So in order to implement this, you have to have some caching. I don't think it requires parallel subscriptions. You can fill it with fetch. But anyway, it moves some complexity to the publisher or relay to give you what's in the current group over subscribe. And there's no flow control for the current group. It's going to catch up as fast as possible. That might be fine in a lot of cases, and it might be really bad in others. But that's fetch is flow controlled and subscribe is not. So that's what happens if you do this. So for some happy paths, things work great. If you have no upstream subscription, the relay can just issue an upstream subscription with the current group, and it will be delivered to you in exactly the right way, so you can just relay it. Another happy path is everything in the current group is already in cache, so you can just serve it directly. And there are cases where if your cache is incomplete between object 0 and the largest object in the current group, as long as your upstream subscription started before the current group, that means the objects that you're missing are still in flight to you. So it's okay to start delivering, and the ones that are missing are going to show up, and you can relay them. So this is what I think people are but it just works, it's fine. There are unhappy paths. So if for somehow if a relay made an upstream subscription and it started mid-group, with a location filter, then it's going to have a hard time if someone asks for current group. So a relay can avoid this by only subscribing on group boundaries. So I'm not sure that is this is an avoidable hazard. The group is too large to fit in the cache. So you can, it's just not going to fit. The current group is days long, and somebody asks for current group, you just can't serve it that way. And so you have to have more code to react to that. Or somehow you did some eviction or something, and you have Swiss cheese your current group. So what the PR does is it recognizes that this operation can fail. If you want to subscribe to the current group, there are cases where the relay just cannot give it to you. And the proposal is you just move on. In MOQ, there's not really a guarantee that you're ever going to get anything via subscribe. So if you asked for current group and I told you largest object is in group 10 and then you didn't see any of group 10, you just got group 11, you can just deal. The PR adds a reset stream code so that if you started serving your group and then you realize that you ran into one of the hard cases, you just reset it and say this is not available. And there could also be a similar signal in request OK, which is just you asked for current group, but it's not available at any price. Pause for discussion. What do people think? People want current group? People not want current group? Well,
I'm sorry, I should.
Let's use the key. If your sense is you need to raise your hand, you raise your hand in the tool, please. I think that's the way to proceed.
Okay, well.
So you said do you want current group? Yes, I want current group. I also want the group maybe just prior to current, right? And the mechanics of delivering that prior bit of the current group can also deliver the group in front of it. So to me, the current group is a boundary, but it's a relatively arbitrary boundary. And I realize we can't have unlimited groups behind live, but is there could we dictate how many groups behind live we want and make it a reasonable number that could accommodate a lot of use cases that don't actually want to start with current group because it's not enough buffer.
I mean, what you're describing is rewind and rewind flopped. So I had to propose something different than rewind.
To me, can you answer why We can only
Why?
serve a little bit of the past, but not a bit more of the past.
I think
using the same semantic.
So I think one is that the current group is special because it's the only group that spans the lifetime. So like it seems reasonable to have some special treatment for this group that makes it somewhat different than the group immediately before it, which is entirely behind life. So that's one reason why we think this is not just an arbitrary distinction, but like a reasonable distinction. And the other one is like it's already a little bit dodgy that you're giving up flow control when you subscribe current group. And so going back indefinitely makes the relay's job harder. It has to go figure out ways to serve things. Rewind was sort of like, you get what you get, and people didn't like that either, because it was like, well, I want to go back 10, and the relay only has 3 and it's cache, and it's like, well, you're only getting 3, and well, that's not what I wanted. So at least with this, it's predictable what you're going to get.
The group can be 2 hours long. You know, we tend to think of groups as small things,
right,
in terms of seconds, and therefore we're limiting the flow control damage to a smaller area, but it could.
No, that's a caveat of this. Like the current group is super long, then if it's in one stream, then it's flow controlled. But if it's datagrams or if it's over a stream per object, then that can blow out your connection, and that's just a consequence. We have a long queue for that.
Michael.
I'm on the same page. I mean, is this all come from your sentence? This is the most common operation. It is not. It is not.
Okay.
I mean, every single OTT guys will ask for multiple groups behind. Every switch will require some groups behind. So the current group is only for the real-time guys, and I mean, count the number of people in the real-time in the streaming use cases, and count the number of people in the OTT regular live streaming guys. So it is not the most common, and so I don't see why we should restrict to just this group and not go 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups behind.
Okay.
There is a kind of a misconnection about this, and you have multiple people to say this is our use case, guys, and we are not listening.
Let me ask forward. What's that? Well, I mean, this is only about the data plane. The second half of the presentation is about the control plane. So it's not that you can't ask for groups behind the current group and subscribe, because that's what the second half of the presentation is about. It's that the way the data gets delivered to you is different, and that where that differentiator happens is between the current group and the one before it. Does that make sense? So it's not that you can't subscribe to group -3. It's that groups -1 and -2 and -3 are going to come on a different kind of stream, and the ones that are from the current group forward are coming via subscribe streams.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, I know the fetch, I know the stuff, so I think it's good, but we cannot have only current group and just remove the fixed fetch behind.
Okay.
If fixed fetch is declined, then I will fight for this.
Okay, fair. Makes sense. Victor?
So first of all, the current group is special because this is the only place in which we raise guarantees that your groups are currently with breaks history. As I said, the motivation slide does say that the worst thing about trading fetch is that it splits group into 2, and the second half of the group is unusable, as in you're just getting a bunch of B-frames and no I-frame. And the reason why this is hard is you always, whenever you talk about groups in the past, you always run into this issue with flow control, which is what happens if you, even if you ask current group, you're inherently at a race because you're trying to send the most recent objects on that arrive by subscription, but you're also at the risk of the head of the tail of the group, but you are also at the risk that the head of the group will get evicted for cash. So that is, and as you raise the number of things you try to backfetch, the probability of this happening is approaching 1. And I say the reason current group setup has a nice plus fair fetch is a nice compromise, is that it solves the issue of you splitting a subgroup, but also it deals with back pressure the way we originally tried to deal with it by doing Dragon Fetch. So it kind of tries to combine the best aspects of both from my perspective.
Can you flip back to your page with the little the boxes, the colored boxes?
The one that, okay, some people don't like those.
Yeah, okay, okay, that one. So, so I think we need to, like, I want to go back to the use cases that drove this, right? Which is people wanted, the reason they're getting the first half of 11 there at all was so that they could start playing it, right? But on the other hand, if they got the beginning of 12 before they got enough of 11 to start playing it at live, that, you know, if time had moved on while they were getting all of this backfill of 11, they wanted to just started playing 12 right away. And this drives a priority issue of you need to be getting, 12 needs to be coming at a higher subscriber priority than the backfill of 11. And so that causes you to need to be able to split the priorities between the blue half and the green half of 11. And I think that like we're forgetting, like we need to go back to, these are the use cases, and this is why we looked at this design before and decided it didn't work.
Can I ask you, so of the three things there, call it 11A, 11B, and 12,
right,
how would you order the priority in the use case you're talking about?
You put 11B, so the second half of 11, and 12 at a higher priority.
And what's what
you put 11A at a lower priority.
But you want 11B before 12 before 12?
The problem is there's not a good way. I mean, you could put 11B at even a lower priority than 11A. But the problem is we don't have a good way to express a different priority for 11B and 12. Now, look,
that's this today.
Okay.
Nothing.
Sure. So like we can design things to sort of deal with this. But I think that what we have to look at to figure this, that really this problem is not about whether you need to send one verb or two verbs up. Okay, everybody gets wrapped up on that. That is the most irrelevant part of the discussion. The part of the discussion that's super relevant is what's this doing to the congestion control, and how does the application have the right level of control to make sure it gets what it wants? And this is one of the problems with trying to use subscribe to backfill. Let's say we go 10 groups back. And by the way, I agree with everyone. As soon as you're going back in time at all, it doesn't matter how many groups you're going back because there's no size limit. All the problems happen, whether it's just a small group or a big group. So I think that we need to talk about the what happens to all those things. And when you're trying to do multiple streams, multiple tracks, different tracks at the same time, and you're trying to say which one of these are more important than others, like as you start putting all of these onto the same streams for the subscribes, that's where we got ourselves in trouble. We couldn't figure out how to make that all work. And part of it was we wanted to be able to do things like say, let's say I'm backfilling object 10, okay, across 3 tracks. But you want to say, I want most of my bandwidth on this track first, and then these other 2 tracks second, right? We can easily see how to do that with fetch, but it's a little bit less clear when it's all merged in with this. So I think we need to talk about what data you want to arrive in what order, and how you get that to happen, no matter what set of verbs you use to describe this is the important thing. Okay. And everybody's trying to simplify the verbs. I get that. I don't care about that. I care about what order the data lands on the wire.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Even your premise that like, I think some people would want 12. I think there's different, if you count those 11A, 11B, and 12, I think different use cases would give you different answers for what order they want those things in. Like I think Wendell probably wants 11A, 11B, 12.
No, I think Wendell wants 5 seconds back or 15 seconds back.
Okay, but I'm hearing what you're saying is like, well, maybe I want 12, maybe I want 11. I definitely don't want 11.
I mean, the mod.
Like, yeah, so I think there's multiple cases. I do agree we should write them down and make sure that but I don't think that we even have the richness today to express everything that you think we do. And so that I don't think this is like causing that many more problems than we already have.
Sure, but I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is like, this won't work. This won't give it what you want without having something in the priorities. Okay, I'm not saying you can't fix this to work. Just saying that as this stands, I don't think this will work. This will cause you to not be able to meet the use case applying 12 early. This will result in
to get 12 before 11.
When you don't backfill 11, 12 will be significantly delayed in this case from what it would be in the current situation.
Okay, and so the way the PR tends to deal with this is that it says if you want to do that, you want, I mean, I think the way the MOQ is like if you want 12 before 11, then you want descending order. And I think you messaged me privately and said descending won't work, but that's how you would do it, right? Just like, I'll give you 11 until I have 12, and then I will start giving you 12, and 11 is deprioritized.
Yeah, but that won't work, because when you go from 12 to 13, descending order will totally screw. Like, look, I'm not gonna give a tutorial on why every commercial product that does real-time video in the world doesn't use a descending order.
Okay, I'm just saying,
But
that's the
no
only,
one does it. We
that is
have
the
a lot
only
of
affordance
discussion.
Monty presently has to give you 12 before 11.
Right, and now it's not usable here, because when you go from 12 to 13, it will fit, right?
All right, there's, okay, very long queue, okay.
Ian?
Yes, I would look at it. Because mostly because of the headline blocking and production and kind of general latency improvements around kind of the joining use case, particularly around like cases like nearly the instant frames we talked about, where you have the like 0-1 problem of today you could end up being significantly delayed all the way to the talked about before. So I don't think the extra complexity is so much, and I think the performance benefits are large.
Okay, I have a clarifying question about that. Sure. Wouldn't the fetch deliver those in the right order for them? Assuming they're prioritized appropriately.
No, they come in one, fetch comes in one stream.
It's gonna come in one stream, and I can't.
But wouldn't that stream come in the order you want?
No, it comes in object ID order.
Yeah, it's not gonna come in.
That sounds like worth fixing.
I sent a list this morning why that. When I get to my turn, I'll mention what I'll mention the point.
All right, I'm next. Okay, two things. So I think.
As an individual?
Yes, thank you. So if the desired order is 12, 11A, 11B, I think this proposal actually allows you to get that quite naturally. Because if 11A is available, then you're just gonna start with 11A and like everything's great, right? I mean, you'll get 11 and then 12 in sequence, assuming ascending order. If 11A is not available, then 11B is blocked because you don't have the front of the subgroups. You cannot send anything from 11B. You don't even have the information of whether those are starting subgroups or not. So if 12.0 arrives before 11.0 on like some sort of backfill or whatever, like 12 is gonna go first. Now, when 11A comes later, like you'll get that then that'll start superseding 12, which is, I mean, it is what it is. But I think this case addresses what you want maybe a little bit better than the current thing where you get 11B first, like instantly, right? Then you'll get the backfill to like 10 or whatever group you want. Okay, my second point was a question, which was when the relay says tough luck, I don't have it, I'm not going to give it to you. So it's not going to be delivered on a subscribe stream. Is the fallback behavior that is delivered to you on a fetch stream, or does it just go into the ether?
Okay, I think the scenario is, let's say, the current group is too large to fit in cache, and you send a subscribe for current group, and the relay is like, I don't have that anymore, and I send a fetch upstream, and the original publisher timeout or something. Like, what are you going to get? Maybe the PR is vague, and there's room to have different. I'm not sure that I can definitively say what the PR would do.
I don't have a strong opinion about that, but I think we need to figure it out and figure, should it be delivered on the fetch or not?
Well, it is in one of the comments I put in the PR that this current group unavailable is, we don't know exactly what to do with this.
Yes. Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I was going to comment on what Colin pointed out. So this is actually one of the motivating issues for this is the delivery order. So if you have delivery ordering ascending, you want 10, 11A, 11B, 12. If you have descending, you want 12, 11A, 11B, 10. And I think that is actually not currently expressible. And so the reason this is important is like, there is no circumstance under which you want 11B before 11.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that has to be true.
Well,
yeah, so I'm going to talk in detail with Victor at lunch, I think, about this. And clearly what I said to this wasn't clear to him. But I think you guys need to try this, implement it, and then see what happens. What's going to happen is if that 11A is any sizable chunk, suppose that you're halfway through the group and the group is 2 seconds. 1 second of 8 megabit video, that's already going to put BBR into congestion avoidance. You're going to already blow out the C wind. So the problem is subgroups are designed for the natural real media rate. It makes sense to have the subgroups fall out and be prioritized when there's a natural media rate, and real congestion causes them to be reordered and dropped. This introduces fake congestion by bursting 11A at line rate, not even line rate, instantaneously. You burst 11A to the QUIC stack. The QUIC stack says, oh, this is not media. This is I'm doing a file transfer. I'm bursting out as fast as I can. But you've exceeded the pacing rate. You've exceeded the C wind. So now you're basically into this mode where you have to start queuing things, either at the MOQ level, or if you have a tighter integration with your QUIC stack, somewhere between. When you start doing that queuing, that's when the subgroups start taking priorities. Subgroup priority kicks in then. In real world scenario, the subgroup priority works well for real congestion. In this scenario, it works horribly because you're not under real congestion. You don't want the subgroups reordered. You want the objects in order. Decoders have to receive all the objects in order to decode them. You can't get them out of order. The player has to have a playout buffer that's stitching together all the subgroup streams and putting them in object ID order. If you force the subgroups to all of a sudden now start coming in subgroup order, not object ID order, now you've delayed the playout buffer for the entire GOP, because you're going to get all of subgroup 0 first. Then you're going to get all of subgroup 1 first. This next. Then you're going to get all of subgroup 2. You're going to get all the subgroups in order, and all the objects are going to be mishmashed. And so now you're going to have to go all the way back to get object 1. You're going to have to get all of subgroup 0 first to get object 1 in subgroup 1. So that's why, if you actually implement this, I think there's going to be an obvious problem with multiple subgroups. With a single subgroup, it works fine. But then it's identical to a flat fetch anyway. So maybe not anything materially different. But with multiple subgroups, you're going to see object reordering. The app is going to get object reordering. And if the whole purpose of this is fast playout, now you have to wait the entire GOP to play out, because unless you want to play out only the base layer and not any of the enhancement layers. But then you shouldn't get them. Why are you occupying the wire if you're going to drop them anyway to play out? Just do a subgroup filter and only get your base layer.
Okay.
Thanks, Suhas.
I think on the question itself, should we have a large group? I think that we will wait for the question until the bill goes at active Twitter. They have effect, positive effect if you think both together, not unusual things. So I will not answer that question at this point in time. But one thing I observed is that, especially when you have the missing subgroup, like for 11A, let's say we have like 2 subgroups and one is missing. If I understand correctly, what will happen is that if you do not have the odd subgroup, then you will get even subgroup, and odd will never get odd, because subscribe semantics does not go and fetch the old ones. In that case, is it expected that when someone does this, they will have a degraded experience for half of the 11A, because there's no way to get a good experience, and if that's what we want. But at least I understand that joining fetch it adds this. I need to go upstream to fill those gaps, but it gives, even though it's delayed, but it gives in everything, so that you can have the right subgroups being there for rendering time, and hence it have the good quality. But I think we miss that. We'll end up having, whenever we have this kind of scenario, we'll end up having the degraded experience until that point. And second thing is that there's no way for me to say my player is waiting too long, I want to cancel that. Maybe we can do request update and probably do it, and have a different priority for filling in. That's something I think we discussed, but there might be ways to do it, but that's one of the things. And I just realized of what Mo was talking about, and in our early Wi-Fi network conditions, which happens even today in any Wi-Fi, that there's this points where the Wi-Fi network starts scanning. At that point, you will not be able to send or receive anything. So the Wi-Fi access point basically buffers all the data. And whenever that happens, something very similar to what is it will buffer and burst the data to the client, and that's when BBR goes crazy. And BBR thinks, oh, this immediately until now, my data rate was so low. Now I see huge data coming in, so I have a lot of bandwidth, and it starts thinking, because the segment grow 10 times bigger, it starts thinking everything is fine, and you start expecting something. And next you see the data rate going normal, and immediately you think, oh, I have lost now. It'll go back again. And this keeps happening every time. And I just kind of want to see that we need to kind of think a little bit about these things. But on the general semantics about can we join these two things in such a way that it can be simpler in API, I think in general direction I like it. But I think there's some of these constraints to think a bit more.
Colin?
Could you do a slide of how we handle the sort of upstream, like the rainy day case one or something?
Yeah,
or
I'm
something?
happy.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. So I want the number one here seems like, you know, obvious at some level. Okay, but I want to point out that this is sort of a turtles all the way down. We have to figure this out. So this will send it to the upstream relay, which will, you know, eventually it's going to go through one or more relays, and it's going to, this same thing is going to go to the original publisher. And in the case where the original publisher is like a large something streaming off a disk, yeah, that's sure, fine, no problem, this works fine. But in the case where the upstream publisher is on the congested end of a LAN link, because usually on our LANs, it's the upload that is, you know, on average, upload slower than the download. So that's where we see more congestion than anywhere else. You know, or more limited bandwidth. I think that we need to work through how this is really going to work, because I think it's going to run into problems there, particularly if some of the relays in the path can't cache as many GOPs as we allow, or as many groups as we allow you to go back, right? So let's just say,
well, this is only for the current group.
Yeah, sure, okay. But if there's a relay that doesn't allow you to cache a full group, which very realistic when we're talking about the end memory.
Or it'll fall to number 2, which is,
yeah,
it would, but it was too big.
Yeah, the groups. So I think that this will just result in a lot of places where we get current group unavailable, and I think that that's a much worse outcome than where we are today. And I don't actually agree with the statement that MOQ never guarantees anything. It's like, no, I actually think that MOQ, within the limits of the bandwidth being available, if you're doing subscribe on the reliable transports, guarantees delivery at some level, right? You know, that's the applications are relying on that to work. So I guess what I'm saying on that is that there might be some applications that it's totally acceptable for sure to add that, but I don't think that, I think you want to think very carefully about whether you were removing the functionality we have today, which seems much more reliable than this in its outcome.
But take what you just said and apply it to subscribe plus join and fetch, because it's kind of the same, isn't it? The joining fetch, the subscribe only goes to the BBDH relay, but the joining fetch will keep going back towards the OP or through relays that may not have a cache.
Right. But its ability to to serve that data at a lower priority that doesn't impact over that congested link is much higher when it puts it on a separate stream than when it does other things. I mean, this is like, I think if you have 1,000 clients all joining at the same time, all causing this to go back. So let's say you have 100 people joining the meeting at roughly the same time. Okay, so in the first, 15 seconds of the meeting, there's a lot of these things happening that are going past in those GOP sequences. And how does this work when you have a bunch of these things all going back to the original subscriber around the same time, and it needs to trickle that data out, yet it's on the same stream as what it's trying to publish its real mainstream data on. So
the relays should all be duplicate. Well, there should only ever be one subscriber for the current group.
Look, it works fine sure, as long as all the relays can keep the whole GOP sequence in cache.
Even if you don't, it doesn't have it. Like, you should only ever have one. Just like you can deduplicate fetch today. 2 people ask for the same object. You don't have to fetch from the OP twice.
Okay, so I've gotten some ducks from that, and I've started feeding it out to the client that requested it, and now the next client comes along. I don't have to redo it.
But isn't that a general problem today, regardless of this, right? Wouldn't joining fetch work the same thing?
I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think joining fetch has similar problems.
No, I think fetch does have to involve. It's just that fetch has a way to manage that data separately than the mainstream video that you're providing to all the clients that are already joined.
I don't know. I see the queue is like, we are almost at the end and it's regrowing. I think everybody's had a chance to speak at least once, so let me just maybe say, what I'm hearing is some interest, some skepticism, some desire to work through scenarios on paper in more detail before we say yes or no on this idea. And also, like, we should look at the second half of the presentation because they sort of work, they work together. So.
And can you clarify that this may not even impact most of the other things?
Right, I mean, I think the idea of whether there's current group is separable from the second half of this presentation, which is you can send a subscribe separately. That includes past data. So, Victor, Ian, you want another word on current group before we move on?
Yeah, I wanted to quick comment on Melissa's. It just to a certain extent true that in some cases with joining with subgroups, you do want to filter out some parts of the subgroups like that are in the beginning but not at the end.
Yes, I agree.
But it is also fairly.
You don't want that all green 11. You want the base layer of green 11.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
You want 11A prime.
Okay.
So, first of all, I thought Movinsec was great about that you just get the base layer, or that's all you'll actually display. But I do want to say that the other subgroups are not completely useless because they allow you to display 11 higher subgroups in 11B because they allow you to decode that. So they're not completely useless, although they are of apparent utility.
I think what I heard from Mo is like getting, if say you have two subgroups, enhancement or base enhancement.
Yes.
The decoder really wants them AB.
Yes,
Not once, has to, cannot deal with them out of order. Must have them in order.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if it doesn't get AB, like if it gets A, and then B, then even if it gets like B0 late, can it not catch up if it's gone ahead and A?
The A stream is fine, the B's are droppable, so you just drop the B, you would never render it, right? You have to do AB, and if you're a player, you're buffering up so that you can give that experience. You want a 60 hertz stream, you requested a 60 hertz stream, you want to play it. So your buffer has to be able to see what the jitter is between those two streams and buffer to handle that jitter. So that's what the player's doing. It's delaying those two subjects.
Well, no, but so I agree that up to the live edge, B will not get displayed unless the player is doing buffering. I don't know if it's buffering in use cases or not. But my point is that after the live edge, there are further objects in B that are dependent on the objects in 11A. So once you hit the live edge, the player will be able to add that enhancement layer because you're delivering these previous objects that you never actually displayed.
So Martin, that was my point. Until like you hit that point,
yes,
you have degraded experience.
Correct.
After that,
I think we're describing the same thing.
Yes.
What Victor's saying is that you need a subgroup filter on 11A. Otherwise, all those subgroup objects that you're throwing away are clogging your bandwidth and forcing you to wait in the player.
But this is what I'm saying, you're not throwing it away because you can use them.
No, the enhancement layer.
No, you're not throwing them away because once you get to the live edge, you will get objects from the enhancement layer that are dependent on the earlier objects.
That completely depends on your video encoding strategy, and most don't do that.
If they're on the same stream, then they're dependent on each other.
Vectors are independent subgroups. They're not dependent on each other.
Okay.
All right. Is that okay? So I'm gonna move on to the second half of the presentation.
Do you want to show hands?
The only thing I might want is not like a formal show of hands, but maybe like a temperature check of like how many people are like, yes, like I really kind of want to do this, and how many people are like, no, this is a really bad idea, stop it now. Because that, if everyone was like, stop it now, I would save myself some work.
Maybe I say something, like, because other half of the presentation has some value that adds to the first question that you have.
So I'll skip it if you go.
So, all right, so you don't want it.
Not right now. Maybe tomorrow or something, we'll come back and see if people have formed enough of an opinion on it or gone through things like paper or something. Okay, so the second half of what's in 1642 is expanding the capabilities in subscribe. So this allows subscribe to deliver groups that are earlier than current via a fetch formatted stream, and in the PR it is called a fill fetch stream. And so it's like the same data stream you would have gotten if you had sent a join and fetch for it, but there is no join and fetch. You said subscribe 3 groups ago, and it will open a fetch stream and give you the past data, and it will open subscribe streams and give you the live data. But it just comes in one message, and you express the range in a single message. You can do that also via request update, which has some. You can if you request update later, like say you had paused the track and then you rejoin, you can request update, and that will open another, when you change the filter, it will open another fetch stream to give you what you need to join after resume. So anyway, so this, and the PR takes, the joining fetch text is all gone, but the data plane for fetch is obviously the hardest part of fetch, and that will still work. So this is what I just said. So every request update that changes the requested fill range will spawn another fill fetch stream. The PR does not limit the concurrency, so you can theoretically send many request updates and have many fill fetch streams in flight servicing the same subscription. We could theoretically cap that at 1, so if I issue a new one, it cancels the old one. I don't know what's right. I meant to change this word problem here. This is something that fell out of this PR. It was not a design intention, but if you say subscribe and I give a fill range which is entirely in the past, and then I send a request update and I give another range which is entirely in the past, and I do that repeatedly, you end up having a subscription to VOD, which is something that you haven't really been able to do in MOQ prior, like you just can't do it.
You don't mean deliver over subgroups. You mean
everything's coming on fill fetch streams. But there's a slight improvement over, say, having a naive fetch loop, right? So today you do this by, just using fetch, just like you would with HTTP GET. There's literally no difference between MOQ and HTTP GET. This is slightly nicer because you don't have to retransmit the track name every time. Set of state in the relay. You don't have to.
Authenticate.
Yeah, there's a few. It makes it slightly nicer. I don't think it's amazing.
I think that's the most valuable part of this, because we conceptually need to realize fetch is a subscription. It should have the subscription state, just like subscribe does. It needs everything that a subscription needs, and it's horrible inefficiency to have to do both. Repeatedly fetch.
There's another issue, like for example, every fetch OK will have all of your track properties, which could be large. Yes. So like if I'm fetching, but this wouldn't. And so it's a slightly nicer way.
In all the payload drafts.
Okay, I don't want to spend too much time.
Yeah, I want you to point that I don't think this can 100% replace fetch, because you can't always subscribe to something that you can fetch, like a track that's completely finished.
I think that's an open issue. There's not. I think that we need to talk about how to handle subscribing to a track that has finished, or whether we need to signal in a subscribe OK, like, hey, you subscribe to this thing, but I know that it's done. I've seen you in the track marker. That's sort of open. Joining a publish is a little bit trickier. If you think about draft 18, when you publish with a forward 1, I think that implicitly means it has to start at the largest object. It doesn't say that in the draft, but I don't understand what else it could be, because there's no way for the publish to go back and start you with past objects.
Why wouldn't it be unfiltered?
Or unfiltered is another way to, largest object or unfiltered, I guess. Probably unfiltered is more correct. Thank you. So anyway, so the PR states this explicitly, although maybe I should change to unfiltered. We could theoretically follow up and say that when you do subscribe tracks, that the default is actually current group, because that's probably what you really want. Like, we don't want to start in the middle of a group. When you are joining a publish that started in forward 1, you don't need any of this machinery, because it tells you what largest object is, and you can just issue a fetch for it, and that will give you a seamless transition. The problem is that when you publish forward 0, you're not receiving objects, and the relay's largest object is moving forward as new things are coming. So if you sent a publish OK and a fill, you don't really know where the end of that fill is going to be. So what you need to do is immediately send a request update with a fill, because the request OK for that will tell you where the split happened. And you need that in your fetch stream so that you can apply the rules that fetch has, which is like, if I'm fetching up to 10 and the stream ended at 8, then I know 9 doesn't exist. There's shared parameters and shared fate in this world. So there's most of the parameters you can only express once. So subscriber priority, the authentication token, all of those are applying both to the subscription and the fill fetch. Group order is like logically separate, but the way I spelled it is there's like a 3-mode enum. If you think about it, there's 4 different possibilities, both ascending, both descending, and then the 2 opposite orders. But one of those opposite orders does not make any sense, where you were filling the fetch from ascending mode and the subscribe and descending mode, like going back towards the join point. So I didn't let you spell it that way, but you absolutely could just make these 2 different ascending and descending flags and just don't send a nonsensical one. In any case, the way it's spelled, there's ascending is both ascending, descending is both descending, and then fill descending, sub ascending is called fill descending. And those group orders also have an implicit prioritization between the fill fetch and the live. So when you're ascending, the fill has higher priority. When you're descending, the live has higher priority in both the descending modes. Mo?
Yeah, one of the points I emailed the list about this morning is the other filters this morning complicate this because we can't follow this pattern of overloading the filters with new enums to mean I want
depending on the
this
spelling, this would
fetch,
work.
I want this one. So I think we need to realize that some parameters will not be shared. Some parameters will be unique for the fetch side versus the subscribe side.
Okay.
Like we just talked about, you probably want a subgroup filter on the fetch side, only get the base layer.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the shared parameters. Mean the priority for subscription stream and fill fetch stream should be the same.
The numeric priority will be the same. So we give you an 8-bit priority number, and so if the subscribe priority is 10, then the fill fetch is priority 10, and the subscribe part of it is also priority 10, and the tiebreaker is defined by this group order.
If I want fill fetch stream come first, should I give them a different subscriber priority?
In this PR, you cannot. You would instead just say ascending, which means the fill fetch will come first.
Yeah, the group order is making this.
Yeah.
The group order is the way.
Actually, we prefer the fill fetch come first.
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of depends on your use case, I guess, but yeah, that can make sense. If you send forward 0, that implicitly cancels all fills. If you cancel the subscribe stream, if you cancel the subscription, that BiDi stream, that will cancel all your fill streams. But you can individually cancel the fill just by stop sending that fetch, and that does not cancel your subscription. The fill timeout only affects fill groups, and the delivery timeout only affects current and future groups. Things you can no longer do. So things that draft 18 will let you do that you wouldn't be able to do if you landed it. So one we just talked about. You can't set a different numeric subscriber priority on subscribe versus the fetch. They get the same number, and the relative prioritization is group order.
There you go.
I mean, that seems like it could be easily, like that seems a very desirable property that wouldn't be too hard to fix.
That's not hard to fix.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the slides got bigger.
Which one?
If we gave the fill fetch and the subscribe different numeric priorities.
Actually, I think it's kind of annoying to do it. Like, I think it's actively wrong feature.
Like, I think our use case is required, so maybe we should just like lead through those.
Okay, all right, I think group order does what you want.
It's okay, but it's not, I agree with Colin that if we wanted to give them independent numeric priorities, we could.
Like I said on the list, priority needs to be considered for the entire connection, not just for this individual track's subscribe versus fetch. The app may have a view of the priorities relative to the entire connection, so maybe assigning specific priorities for specific things, not just wanting to reprioritize this fetch versus that subscribe on this one track. There may be a ladder of a bunch of priorities, and it's setting them all. I mean, someone wants to be able to.
I don't want to face plan on this question because we can spell it either way, and I don't really care. But I do. It does seem to me like if I want this track, either I want it at this priority, or I want it at that priority. Not I want this happened at this and that happened at that. But if you guys need it, we can do it.
So I have one clarification question. Instead of having the 3 combination of ascending and descending, can we instead have fill priority and fetch priority?
Yes.
Then because ascending and descending.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Let me just, okay, so that's like what number 2, I like removed this like what I thought was a nonsensical order, but if people want it, we can specify it independently. Today you can cancel the subscription but keep your fill. but I removed that if you do it this way. Like if you cancel the subscription, the fills also get canceled implicitly. You also can't trivially aggregate downstream subscriptions. Gwendol did an amazing job of like analyzing this PR and like into a whole flow chart, which is disturbingly long, which I linked here if you want to go read it. It's beautiful and will help you, definitely help you much think through it. And it highlighted some cases where the PR has not yet covered yet. So, but there are cases where like, if you have a particular kind of upstream subscription and a new subscription comes with a slightly different kind of filter, like you need to do some relay processing before you just like today subscribe comes, you're like, great, I'm attaching you to the existing one, that's all I need to do. Now it's like I have to look at the filter, I have to figure out what your fill fetch is, I need to decide what to do upstream, etc. No?
What if you forward equals 0, the subscription, does that affect the fill fetch or?
Yes.
It does?
Yeah, if you forward 0 the subscription, it cancels your fill fetch.
Does that seem a little weird that like conceptually, I thought it would mirror subscribe tracks. Subscribe tracks is like a factory for subscribes. All the parameters you put in subscribe tracks apply to the subscribes, but then if you keep messing with subscribe tracks, it doesn't do anything to the established subscriptions. It's a factory for new subscriptions. But then you manipulate the subscription directly. You don't manipulate subscribe tracks. I thought this was the same thing, that this is a factory for fetches.
We could do it that way. Like, I thought it like made sense to couple the fates together, but if people think that independence is super important, we can just say if what you really want is to cancel everything, like I'm pausing this track, I don't want anything, then you will just have to cancel the subscription and stop sending the fill fetch streams when they come.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a general approach, regardless of this forward question, a general approach. Is this a factory for fetch streams, or is it's constantly updating those fetch streams?
PR is opinionated in that like the fill fetch is part of this, they're coupled to the subscribe. So if you cancel that subscription, your fill fetches are gone. If you forward 0 the subscription, your fill fetches are gone.
For example, you update the range, your fill fetch is still there, right? If you get another fill fetch,
you'll get a new fill. If you update the range with the fill type, you'll get a new fill fetch.
But the old one is not canceled or gone.
Not in the PR.
It's like a factory for that one parameter, but the other parameters it's directly modified. It could be good to figure out if we could do one cleanly one way or the other.
I think this is like doable.
So I mean, like we have the other knobs just reset the fetch stream, the fill stream,
Yeah.
or even like stop reading to the fill stream.
Because there's no BiDi stream to control that fetch.
Right, but you always have the option of
Stop sending.
Yeah, so if it's an important use case, you can just use that knob instead of refining the knobs.
Yes.
Yes.
But there is a danger if we say forward equals 0, but fetch me the full string from the beginning, you are making the relay downloading the full history of the channel for nothing. So
But I can just send a standalone fetch and do the same thing.
you cannot do fetch forward 0.
Oh, but sorry.
It just does nothing.
If you subscribe forward 0, it doesn't even create. If your initial subscribe is 0, it doesn't even. If you said fill forward 0, it's like no, you don't get anything.
Yeah, but the relay is getting a lot of data for you, although there is absolutely.
There's a different issue, which is like, what does the relay do when this, which we'll talk about in the issue section, not for this subscription, but like right now our draft says when you get forward 0 from the subscriber, a relay should send forward 1 upstream, but that might be too strong. We need to talk about it.
I think, I'm sorry if I think what Gwendol's saying is, today with fetch you cannot forward 0, so you cannot go get a zillion objects and make the relay go get a zillion objects and not take any of them. Whereas the line is at least in theory limited by the line rate, right? So
there's no version of that in this either. If you subscribe, if you do a fill fetch and forward is 0, it's like I'm not going to open any fill fetch for you.
Yeah. So I think it's still the case, but I'm concerned.
We have a general notion I see on several threads of when you do forward 0, should the relay keep getting stuff or should it be like a hard or soft fill fetch, right? We could invent that, and then that would, there's cases where you want it for liveliness to keep constantly retrieving, but there's other cases where you don't.
I think I tried to simplify a number of things. What I hear from people is like they like having lots of degrees of freedoms, which shouldn't surprise me after 4 years. So like, I think maybe you guys can have them, like if that's what you want. There's a few more slides here, and I see my timer ticking down. But
I mean, I guess I'm wondering about on the fill streams is that, like, we have lots of conditions where the errors can be different on different objects that you get in the same track. Like, you might be able to get some of the objects in track, but not others, just based on the time they were published and the time in the token auth filter, for example, right? That's one of our auth use cases is time-based stuff. So I'm sort of wondering, like, can this record error? Like, how do errors happen? How do you record errors for the fills effectively is what I'm trying to get at.
There's not a separate control message for the fill. So whatever your subscribe okay or subscribe error is like, or request error is like one path to report problems, like when it starts. Once you get going, you have the option of using the unknown range to be like, well, I tried to get this piece of the upstream, but the upstream's not available right now, so I'm just going to give you an unknown marker, continue serving this stuff in cache. And you can reset that stream and be like, I timed out talking to the upstream or whatever you want to do. Right? That's sort of it. Right, there's not a control plane to say, fill stream 1 died.
Unless you use request update only, you can do a request error. You
I
did one
think
for subscribe.
I think the logic is if any of your request updates ever fail, it kills your whole subscription.
Request error will, request error to a request update will kill the subscription?
Yeah. And that, well, this is a factory model problem, right? Like it's not a factory. You know, it's a singleton.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, this is somehow clear in the flow chart that you can have errors on the field fetch and okay for the current group and okay for the live, or you can have error on the field fetch, error on the current group, but then the live works. And you have multiple kind of errors coming in your request ID. That might need to be clarified in the text. It's not a blocker, but it's something which can be confusing.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. So one question that came up is like, could you kill fetch completely, like standalone fetch? So if you already kills joining fetch, could you kill the control message fetch? So I think the answer is you could. I'm not sure if we should. So if you do a fetch and your range is entirely in the past, that's like a one and done operation. If you do a subscribe and your range is entirely in the past, the PR I think has that you do, but I think I've settled mentally on, for the things we talked about the VOD case, that subscription stays open. Like as long as your BIDA stream is open, you know the fill fetch is done, you could send another request update, ask for something else, right? So I think the complicated piece about fetch is describing what the data stream does and describing joining fetch, which we removed. I don't think having a simple standalone fetch, which is like, just give me these objects in one shot. I know what I want. I don't want a subscription. Kind of makes sense, but don't weigh in on this yet. I'm just going to get to the end of my presentation, which might be close. Oh, good. So, all right. Do people have other thoughts on fill fetch? I heard a lot of maybe it's too coupled and it would be better if we decoupled more. Do people like it better than joining fetch? Worse?
Where was it? Where's that in terms of spelling slide?
Do people want to? Okay, then they're after this. So there's different. This is like a general. Do you think the concept of issuing a subscribe that could contain past objects and getting them over a fetch-like stream is a good thing, or would you rather have it today, where you send a subscribe to the live things and a fetch to past things?
I just say I think that this, I'm mostly just a respelling of joining fetch. The two things are different are some of the shared state, which I think I'm fine with. I don't really mind if we had to couple a little more. But what I like about this is this solves one of the cross-stream dependency problems we have right now. And that's what's really appealing to me about this. Wendell.
So I support it, I like it, and I just wanted to add that it's today is the best way to support the client-side APR in a clean way with the switch from parameter. So the use case is very significant. And if we don't have this, we need to review switch again. Nobody wants this. So we need to support this one.
Can you clarify why the switch with this?
Well, because with the switch from parameter, we have only one message to send to switch, which is really clean. And if we have the joining fetch on subscribe, we have to do something.
Mo, if you haven't seen it, there's a PR built. There's a PR built on this.
I saw it. I still don't understand. So if you have this parameter switch from, why does it need this other parameter?
the location, like, you can basically switch from and include in the same thing a fill, which is like, tells like, I'm subscribing, I'm switching from this other track to identify request ID, and I give a filter, which could be like -3 from head, and then that will open a fill fetch stream when it's ready. Anyway, let's not dive into it too much.
But just to say, and so the flow chart I drew, that it works. I mean, there is no point where for the relay, this is something where it doesn't know what to do. So there are some cases where the text can be improved probably, but overall it works. So support it.
Mike?
Mike English, Butler. I just wanted to say on the sharing, I think that this is maybe not so much of an issue because if you keep this, particularly if you keep the standalone fetch, then you always have the option of sending that for anything else that you need to backfill further. Just as a reminder, joining fetch was an optimization to be able to pipeline things within a round trip time. So the idea is always that like once the client knows where the live edge is and what the state of the world is, it can always go back and fetches to backfill further. So I think this is great.
Okay.
I think all the hard parts of this aren't figured out yet. We need to get more details on those. We need to go back to the use cases and make sure we nail down look, a bunch of these things like, do we need split priorities or not? Like we need to, concrete and figure those out. I see how we can extend this to do them, right? But I think there's like a bunch of those around priorities, errors, what has to be, being really clear about what flows over which stream when and what type of data it is. But I mean, like, conceptually, I don't really care. I mean, I think we're doing the same thing as joining fetch at some level. Joining fetch gave us a lot of flexibility in how things was delivered. And maybe Ian would argue we don't need that flexibility or whatever, but I think we need to go back and figure that out and then figure out if we're okay with this reducing that flexibility or whether we need to put into this mechanism adding in the flexibility to do those types of things. And we definitely have to deal with all the issues about how this flows back through a chain of relays to an original publisher.
Again, as you point out, this is in many ways like a sleight of hand. It doesn't change the status code that much, right? Like it should flow through relays. It's very similar to the way joining fetch does.
I think it could be made to do that perhaps, and then would have to write that down, but it can't be written down. That's not true when the whole hard part of this, like what happens on a rainy day is like, we got a bunch of options, we'll figure that out later, right? Like that has to get very specific before we can really actually address how this works. Right?
Okay.
It can't just be like relays do whatever they want, maybe this will work, and we move from a situation where we know exactly what will happen and what a conformant relay will do to we move to a situation where it's like, might work, might not, who knows, right? Like we got to do that.
I mean,
I know that's not your intention. I'm not.
No. But I would just ask them that for you, because I think clearly have some in mind, and maybe others do as well. Like it's much easier if you guys can write down the specific cases that are important to you, and then we can run that through the PR and find out where the holes are. Sure. Because it's hard for me to generate those, since I'm more of like a bits and bytes and less on the use case. Will.
Yeah, I support this. Even if it looks and behaves a little bit like joining fetch, I like the shape of the API. I also, the switch from, as Wendell has mentioned, I think is an elegant way to do client-side APR, and that's certainly important to my use cases. I also think the VOD fetching is particularly elegant, and I like that as well. I think that'll be efficient. So for those reasons, I support.
Well,
I like it as well. I think we should remove fetch and joining fetch. This is a much better mechanism. I think we need to work out the shared versus unique parameters. I know there's a spelling that has nested parameter blob, and maybe we can look at that or have some other ideas. But if we can solve the unique versus shared parameters part, I think it's clear that fetch by itself is got a lot of holes in it. Got a lot of inefficiencies, not holes, but inefficiencies. This would help plug.
Victor?
I think the biggest problems that I realized yesterday is that there is a big problem with joining fetch right now, which is because where the joining fetch, it joins with respect to some point largest object in the group. And traditionally, we had like very specific rules about how you tag to the state and how you update this state. And if you get this wrong, you get like a race condition where you have a gap between the typing process of scribe and typing process joining fetch. And this completely gets rid of that because now those two are persistent momentarily. So it removes quite a bit of state tracking on the front.
Okay.
Really stuff to track that. It's stuff to track that, right?
Yes, but you can it's the same state, like, it's just a request.
No, but I mean, can't you do a request update with a full fetch request in it?
Yeah.
The relative group.
You can, but you no longer, like the whole thing the draft had around joining location, that's removed. Because
If I do a request update for field fetch 3 prior, what is that?
it'll be evaluated against the current, the location that's.
Are you done, Victor?
Yeah, so the current rules are like, you have a join location and you report it when you receive subscribe, and you update it in some cases in request update.
Yes.
Not others.
And this gets rid of that.
I argue that request update should always update the thing, and this effectively does that.
Right, okay, Subhas.
It's just more of an observation rather than supporting or not supporting. What I realized is that from the discussion, this definitely requires a focused design team, not to say, not to kind of talk about spelling, but also like the 4 issues I sent you, and thanks for adding those things. We need to kind of add a clarifying explanation of how each of those things needs to be done. I do feel like having one word where subscribe can go past another future is a good thing. It's not a talking thing. Same time, but without answering those things and seeing what things that we had in joining text, those are the 4 things I kind of listed for what we missing. Those are good things to have. I think if having some focused time and come back and say this is what the proposal looks like, much more effective.
Okay, that's noted, thanks. Ian?
Yeah, I think it's removes a number of edge cases, and I think the request update, like joining location one, is like an excellent example, as well as like dependent message issue, which like we kept doing. So it's definitely very strong. The fact that the DoD request update thing kind of fell out of it is like a very nice drawing. I think I think that's like reference for removing fetch, but I don't really care if that's wrong either way. I think the only 2 things this PR removes from this joining fetch functionality, just to answer Kelvin's comment, is prioritization is 1 value instead of 2, which, you know, was my opinion is that that's better. Obviously, maybe there's some use case where it could be different, but that's the spelling issue. We fix that. And then the other one is you can't go this. You can't go outside in when you do report. Those are the only 2 things that were removed.
I don't. Outside in was not something I think that we could discuss prior and figure out what it's.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really wants.
I think maybe one more thing that Colin highlighted is that we also lost the control stream for the fetch, which means there were some cases where you would get a fetch error, which gave you a little bit richer detail, including a reason for this.
Okay, I put myself in the queue as chair. I think we're hearing I'm hearing a lot of positive sentiment about the direction of this PR, and obviously there's a lot of detailed discussion to happen. I would like to open this floor to anyone who thinks this is a bad path to go down before we move on. I will note that, this doesn't block us from doing anything, but Luke is not here, and he is a big joining fetch person.
I did run this by Luke, and
great.
I think for the whole proposal, his biggest thing was current group.
Yeah.
If I can paraphrase, he really liked the current group thing. He was sad that it didn't go back further than the current group because he wants it forever. But he was also sort of willing to live with it as a compromise.
Okay, great. Thank you for taking that step. So again, opening the floor if anyone thinks this is a bad idea.
So I don't want to comment on being a bad idea, but I want to comment on, I don't think it's solving the use cases in our solve today. So I don't think it's our most important idea. Dedication of time, this is, I feel like this would be a great thing to work on at some point, but I would rather get the stuff that we have to get done before we publish a draft done ahead of this, which is, I see as a nice to have.
That's fair.
I'm willing to work on this.
I do think partially solves the dependent request problem, which is an actual issue we have.
But so to switch, right? We have other PRs that solve.
Yes, well, there's multiple steps, but this is part of that. Yeah.
No, this is not part of, this is independent. I think we could trivially, without doing this, we could trivially solve the other one, right? Right?
I don't know if trivial is the way I would put it.
No.
I mean, let me
Fair.
let me back up and say, like, if I see sort of two paths forward to work, one of them is we band-aid join fetch up to the ISG, and we just keep going. Like we're on joining fetch, we've gone this path 2 years ago. We just keep there's little problems with it. We keep fixing this little problem, that little problem, and I think we can get there, Colin. I think we can. And I think there's another one which is we switch tracks and we go in this direction. And like at the end of the day, the total number of use cases we can support, I agree, doesn't really change. Maybe the VOD one, like that being slightly better than it used to be, but it's not in our core.
Right. So to the extent this is spelling change, I think people are fine with spelling change. I'll make that statement. There's some concern about the knobs you were removing. So I think the action item is to work with, as you described, maybe work with Colin and some other people that are concerned about the knob critiquing way.
I think that could be resolved over a beer this evening.
Yeah, right, okay, work through that. If that does not, like, if that takes too long to converge, just like open up all the knobs you're not sure about so we can land something. And then we can follow more issues if people want to take away knobs later.
Okay, I'd like to understand more about the largest object and join location.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all for that, but
Okay,
you mean the largest object filter?
No. The
largest object filter requires knowing the join location. That's how it works.
Right. You know, the issue that was there is that today your request update and a joining fetch that matches that request update are two separate messages. So when you get a request update that changes forward state from 0 to 1, the relay has to record largest object at that time in case a join comes later. Yes. That edge is now removed because the request update itself is the join. And so it doesn't need to have this like.
Can you do a request update to largest object?
Can you do a request update to largest object?
Today or in
this?
To largest object. Can't you do that?
Yes.
And that will force you to change your join location, right? So the relay still has to remember its join location until we can eliminate largest object. I'm all for eliminating the largest object filter.
No, because there's no more joining. This removes joining fetch. Request update is, you don't have to save anything because you just look at what it is when you get the request.
No, you just put largest object filter on a request update or on a bear subscribe. That forces the relay to record join location, right?
No. It doesn't need there's no more joining. There's no need for joining location anymore because there's no more joining.
That's how largest object filter works. When you say subscribe,
okay,
it remembers the largest object as the join location.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. Yes,
and then it has to keep filtering.
Okay, it has to remember it in a different way. That's what you're saying.
Remember it until we're at 0 or 1 again.
Yes.
Okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
It does not eliminate the join.
It does not eliminate the hard part.
Well, no, I think it eliminates the part that was like.
Let's talk about void and actually eliminate largest object tonight.
Okay.
That would be useful.
So I think I hope we've had a discussion on this.
Okay, I want to, so both Victor and Mo didn't like the spelling and wanted to talk about different ways to spell it. We've been out for 75 minutes.
I think, can we do that, can we change spelling offline?
Can we do like 5 minutes of just a highlight and then people will have some
I
context?
just had one more thing. You had the first question that you asked about, should we add the largest group for the beginning of the current group thing? I think we haven't resolved that yet.
I kind of agree. I don't know, now that people have seen the whole presentation, let me go through the spelling and we'll think about it back in mind. Has the second half of the presentation changed your answer?
This does not require that first part.
That's
If
true.
you are against the current group, you don't have to be against this. This does not require the current group change.
Okay.
They're separate. Separate.
No, there are separate, but especially if you do fill stream to the latest object. Then the current group comes.
They're totally separate. You can still do a fill fetch with previous groups.
No.
Whether it comes as flat or whether it comes as subscribed is the first.
Okay, let me just go through the last few things to keep in mind and we'll give you guys a break. So one question is, the way I spell this, so today there is absolute start and absolute range filters. They don't get you anything in the past. They just say, if anything comes in this range, I want it. The question is, if we add the ability to fill those ranges, so when I say, I want to start from whatever, this absolute start point, if we add that capability, do we still want the capability where it only sets the filter and doesn't fill? So my PR leaves both options. You can either subscribe with the filter or subscribe with a fill. And I think Mo was like, we should only support one of those. We should only support the fill option. Yeah. And I don't know if do people have, like, I didn't want to.
Saying I'm interested in this range of objects. Why would you not give it to them?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
So it gives you an absolute range of objects at once, and you say no.
Does anybody feel strongly about retaining the filter versus fill option?
So, just to clarify, and is there a case where you're like, you're saying, I want this range of objects, but I only want the even ones because I'm doing.
No, it's like, I want this range of objects, but not if they've already arrived.
The purpose of absolute range filter is really for future, it's for future stuff. If that be applied in the past, why would they apply in the past unless they want to fill the past?
Now that I said it out loud, it sounds absolutely ridiculous. So I think maybe that does make it simpler. At least we don't have to add enums. We can just.
Now I understand why I wasn't understanding.
Okay. Anyway, so this is just how it's spelled in the PR. That there's the 4 filter types we already have, and then it adds these 4 new ones. But I just, per the previous slide, we can just merge the 2 absolute together. So it would only add 2. Current group, again, is completely optional. So maybe the only one it's adding is, it's either current group and relative previous, or just relative previous. Mo, do you want to talk real quick to the slide, or do you want me to run through it? Or
this is what I presented this morning. It's the location filter proposal. Again, resurfacing it. And it just, I think, more simply expresses what the app really wants, a range of objects. Just give me a range of objects, and whether it's absolute or relative, both are supported by just giving the range. It's that simple. So you don't need an enum, you don't need all these variants. Just give it a single range.
Kills the enum. I mean, I think it's a different way to spell it. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And then, Victor, you want to
can I
talk?
ask one question on the previous one? How does this work for the joint features case?
You put this on this, well, the joint fetch would be gone if you use the other proposal. The fill fetch would be on the subscribe itself. So you put the location filter on the subscribe.
Okay, and the relay basically does, if it's the locations previous correct.
Yeah,
so object into the field.
Older locations will do the fill.
Okay.
Newer locations will be applied to the subscribe filter.
The underlying mechanism is exactly the same what Alan presented, but the API is the.
Yeah, I think that's.
It's just how you spell it instead of email.
Okay, Victor?
Yeah, my proposal is basically instead of adding new subscription filter types, you can take existing subscription filter types, or you can take location filters, and you can have just a separate parameters. It's just like, here are the parameters for the fill fetch. And this gives you the flexibility of like specifying whatever parameters you want.
The only thing about that I have a question about, which like kind of goes back to what we just said, which is like, that means I can say subscribe relative -10, but fill relative -5, or vice versa.
That's just true. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, the subscribe, the parameters that you would fill in with subscribe would only apply to new layout subjects, right?
Yes.
That's a difference. And the other thing is, I'm not 100% sure, but I think if we make location filter, can we make a location filter just inherit from like subscribe to fetch, and it will just work?
Yeah, the location filter was designed for both subscribe and fetch. It worked originally on both.
If we did that.
I think we'll need a final spelling that combines. I think the key part of this that's needed is this message parameters embedded within. That concept needs to somehow, or something equivalent to that, needs to
Fill
somehow
parameters.
because the parameters between subscribes and fetches, some of them are shared, some of them need to be unique. We need to be able to express those unique ones somehow. I don't love the nested embedded, wrapped up parameters inside of parameters, but we need to figure out some way to do that.
Okay, that's all the slides I have on this topic.
I don't think we need nested parameters. That sounds horrible. Let's just have 2 different parameter types, one of which only applies to fetch, one of which only applies to subscribe.
They'll have to duplicate all the parameters.
Yeah, I know, I prefer those way, but.
They have to duplicate all the parameters that may be relevant, that may be unique.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a small set, but okay.
So, okay, do you want to, how do you want to, Suez's point about the current group vibe, like, so I feel like sentiment towards 1642 is the right direction for removing joining fetch going this direction.
Yes.
current group seems more ambiguous.
I think.
What's our plan to resolve that?
I think people need to digest it, that's what I heard.
Okay. Do we want to save 10 or 15 minutes tomorrow to just come back and see people?
Right, so if you want people to need to digest the current group thing, please, your homework assignments, take a look at it tonight. We have a parking lot for MOQ issues tomorrow morning. And we can revisit that and see where let's take people's temperature again tomorrow morning on whether we want to proceed or kill the fire.
I mean, I think one other question too is that are there people for whom if we don't add current group, the whole thing is a no-go? Like Luke, I think might be in this category, but like, is there anybody else who's like, no?
I think we need to understand who thinks they really need current group, and the people that see problems with it need to talk to those people to show them the problems with it when they apply to their use case.
Can we get like a quick who here is in the camp of I really need current group? Either.
So let's have a beer and show you why it breaks YouTube's cases.
And I think Luke's in camp too. Okay. That's all I have for this one. I know we're dreadfully behind schedule and
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think we got some feedback that maybe we need to resolve issues rather than peanut butter on everything. So, we're going to talk with some people. If you have a strong, so we're dealing with a bunch of adopted drafts on a Friday afternoon. I was actually going to talk to Will about this a bunch and what how to prioritize those. If you have strong feelings about which adopted drafts need to be discussed this week, come see me at lunch. Lunch is not here yet, but it will be here in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So rather than try to launch into the concurrent subscribe talk, can we just do issue with Vaughn until lunch arrives?
Can I stand up and walk around for 2 minutes or something? I've been talking about that.
There's some issue with Vaughn that are not you're not personally presenting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm happy to talk to one of mine if you want.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Or whoever. I mean, that doesn't have to be. I don't care. But if you want to stop talking, you can be one of the ones.
Can I throw out one wild thought on the previous topic? Instead of debating the current group thing, ad nauseum, can we consider at the end of the day, the data streams are delivering either subgroups or flat fetch streams? Why not just give that as an explicit option in the subscriber, or there's no fill fetch, but you just say a range, and you say whether you want that range flat or as subgroups. And you're the app, so you're making the decision. If you break something, you know what you're breaking. You want flat?
That sounds easy to get consensus on really quick.
You want it subgrouped, you get it subgrouped. And it's up to you to decide which way you want it. And so that could even work for VOD for.
I think that's what
Object Zero
is, isn't it?
No, I think Mo's saying
explicit.
Well, I mean, actually, I think Mo to some degree it's just a spelling thing, right? Which is if you don't want the past objects of the current group, if you want them via fill fetch, you can do that. Subscribe. Anyway, I think we could make that option. And if somebody's like, no, I really want the objects of the current group in my subscribe streams, then we can make that a toggle.
So the current group we deliver either by fetch, not at all, or by fetch stream or by subscribe stream.
I'm not saying the current group. I'm saying in general.
I think Mo's saying any group,
any group you want, any range you want, you can say I want this flat or I want it multi-stream.
Do you feel that's really important?
I think it's a way out of this mess to figure out who really wants the current group flat, who wants the old stuff.
Monty opens the next drawer.
I mean,
the fight of getting everybody on the same page about what they want, how I'll agree.
Our goal is
maybe harder than just saying
this may be an interesting proposal. Because I'm sure I can implement this in less time than we will spend discussing it.
There may be stupid things that come out of that. People absolutely do stupid things and shoot themselves in the foot, but give them the tools, they can do smart things for stupid things.
I mean, conceptually, I find your proposal didn't. I don't have any. The one concern I have, we have a solution for that we already wrote up, so we just flow control for subscribe if you really want it, or you can just let yourself shoot yourself in the foot and deal with the pain.
I don't know if expanding the knobs to the point and no one's actually advocating towards is moving this along or not.
See if you
It
can.
could just be a flag on the location filter. Location filter says
No,
more, flag
this
says-
the spelling is simple, like I said, it's not the issue. I
If
just-
you want to go with what we have today, which is join fetch, makes the until the current object as a fetch, and from current object to subscribe. I think the first portion to do is that, because let's say the spelling is location filter, we go with keep the semantics as it is, and then build the thing if we really want. How do you want to say everything to be flat or not flat?
I think having the current group, all objects of the current group being delivered either not at all or by fetch stream or by subscribe stream is a pretty simple tweak to the proposal we have that maybe makes everyone happy unless somebody thinks they're.
Why don't we digest it over lunch?
Yeah, why don't we digest it over lunch? Okay, so do you have some issue with?
I hit request for slides. But
Oh, there you go, yeah. I'm probably, okay.
I just want to comment on that, that's what I meant to comment on the previous thing, is like, look, I'm in favor right now of things that don't dramatically complicate the protocol or the implementations.
Yep.
And remove months of arguments from the table and getting us back. I prefer to add it. I'm not even, it doesn't matter if this one or other one's similar, like, it's like, we should be at that state of like, how do we get to something that meets everybody's needs, even if some people have crazy needs. Yeah, some needs crazy, but I'm like, we'll figure that out over here.
Martin, you want this one?
Yeah, okay, I can talk about this. So I found this issue when I tried to implement things and noticed that we had published blocked. Okay, so now that our request streams are each requested on its own binary stream, like the request flow control thing is the number of binary streams that you're allowed to open. So there's a number of verbs, the ones I listed there, were clearly like the requester is going to have to retry it, right? Because there's no way for the publisher to push that thing, those things. Okay, so now we have quick streams blocked. There's a question that I think some people have probably credibly said is an API question, which is like, does MOQ have a contract to automatic like queue pending requests that are rejected by stream flow control and then retry, or is that going to get passed into the application? That is that's fine as far as it goes. I can accept that. One response I got was HTTP, we just open another session when we get streams blocked. I don't think that's a satisfactory way to do things. Well, first of all, like I think we've been trying to as an IETF, we've been trying to discourage opening more connections to the same target, same domain, ever since HTTP 1.1. We have all these, we have requests that have dependencies on other requests that does not work across sessions. And then lastly, servers more or less cannot. Servers can be requesters and they cannot open new sessions in general. So that, I don't think that really works. So at a minimum for that, I would like to have some editorial, and that was, I don't think, not obvious to people. So I think it'd be nice to have some editorial text saying, this is not a good way to solve this problem. Okay, the other part of it, for these verbs we talked about, the other thing we use, the other question is what is the expected relay behavior? So if I'm a client and I send a subscribe to a relay that forwards upstream and it is flow control blocked, like is the relay expected to retry that, or will it send an error and maybe like say try again in a little bit, although the relay is no way knowing when the screen credit is going to open. Like, I don't really have an opinion about this, but I think we should write down what we're going to do in this for interoperability reasons. I mean, I'll open the floor to discussion about that question. I mean, you can just talk, but no one else is.
I mean, I know what a load balancer does, which is it's another connection.
Right, but in this case, relays don't open connections. The clients, relays connect clients.
No, I think I meant upstream.
Yeah.
The upstream question.
But a MOQ relay doesn't have an upstream. MOQ relay has clients.
Okay. These people are just going to open another connection and like.
No.
So, but the upstream is behind a NAT or a firewall. I can't open a connection.
Okay.
I think we should write down what we think is going to happen, because there's going to be some cases where it'll never succeed, right? If the client has a maximum of 10 subscriptions and the relay needs, so it gave 10 binary stream credit,
Yeah.
And then the relay now has another subscriber wants to subscribe to an 11th one, but the client is never going to grant that credit because there's already 10 ongoing. Like that will always, that's just going to fail. And I think so. There has to be some provision for the relay to give up and be like, I'm sorry, subscriber.
Yeah.
That's one advantage of not having fetch as another BiDi stream, right?
Well, but those are at least theoretically ephemeral. Your fetch will end.
They're all under subscribe.
Well, I don't know that makes sense.
So one notion is, so a couple considerations here. One is that there's always a situation where the relay is going to have to give up. Like it's going to queue a finite number of pending requests. So we eventually will have to fall back on the client doing something here. But I mean, like I said, I don't have a strong opinion about this. I want to have what the relay should do. I mean, the principles that I think we're trading off here is like try to be easy on the relay and not make it do stuff, versus the fact that the client has no idea when that credit will be granted, and so retrying is going to be like a very sort of trial and error-ish process.
Do we have any set parameters for max tracks or anything like that?
I mean, just the BiDi credit, that's it.
But there's a parameter for BiDi credit?
In quick transport parameter.
No, but I mean, at the app level, do we say anything about, so when you said the relay allows 10 subscriptions, there's no way to know that?
No, this is not the relay.
There's no way for another client to know that the relay is blocked on, the relay is blocked on client A, because the client B subscribed to the relay. The relay is trying to subscribe to client A, but it's blocked. So like, what is client B? Yeah.
If you really are completely blocked, I guess it depends on what you're. If you know you're completely blocked, then you can always just like refuse new connections because you can't service like requests anymore. But if it depends on which peer you're like going to be writing the subscription to, and like for some, say namespaces, like over here I can send subscriptions for this namespace, but I can't for that one. Then you're in a tough spot because you don't know when the client is connecting if you're going to be able to service the request they have or not.
Don't most quick stacks just give credit automatically when you get near the watermark?
Usually there's a hard limit on concurrency. So I'm saying like, I'm willing to service 10 requests at the same time or 100 requests at the same time. And as streams close, I will grant more credit. But if you have 100 open, I don't give you more.
I think this is one, I think when we get to the general DDoS thing, we're trying to use streams as the mechanism to limit all of our DDoS things, which worked well in the HTTP case. I don't think it's going to work here. I think if we make streams the limit, we're going to run into unsolvable problems like this. Right?
I don't think this is unsolvable. I think we just need to write down
So first of all, 100% agree. It has to be definitive. We need to understand it, and preferably the client needs to understand what happened that went wrong. Right?
I mean, there's two options: request error, no stream credit, right? Or maybe it hangs, or maybe there's some new like pause message that says like I'm trying, give me time.
Or the subscriber sends a timeout.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to wait this long for credit to be.
There's many ways to spell. So I guess I'm not hearing like really strong opinions about like how to solve this problem. Just it needs to be solved. So maybe like you or I just write a PR that solves it in some way, and we can just like see if it makes any money
The
else.
simplest thing to do is to say, if there's no credit, if you can't open it, then you give a request error, and the client is responsible for retrying. That is like the least amount.
Okay.
I think the second one would be like the client. We create a new timeout parameter, or we use run every timeout. I don't know if that's a good use of run every timeout or not.
No.
But the timeout is like, if I'm willing to wait this long for my subscription to be established, and that covers, including if there's no credit, I would like you to queue for credit, and if my timeout expires before I'm able to get.
Aren't you glad we gave you a break from talking?
I know. So talk about something okay.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So I guess the action item. So what I'm hearing is yes, we should write this down. Like as far as nobody has any strong opinions about how it should be solved, as long as we just have something that we can all agree to do. And so I think either Alan or I will write a PR that proposes, I think probably request error because it's easy, and we'll see if people scream about it.
So just a quick question on that. It sounded like what I was hearing is If we have no idea when this is going to work, it doesn't seem like a timeout's a really great idea. It just seems like airing it right away would be better than like hanging out.
No, it's not even about timeout, it's about something else closing.
Yeah,
How do you submit a close? You want 1,000, you're never gonna close
So
them.
basically you get this error, the error should like
There's value
the
in-
sub-message will say, find another CDN, I mean, like, what's it gonna do?
I mean, I guess the client is already having timeout on subscribe, right? When it says to subscribe, it's gonna be like, I'll wait for my subscribe okay for 3 seconds, and if I don't have one, I don't care why it didn't come back. I'm gonna cancel it. So that maybe, I don't know if we need to send a parameter.
Well, I think we need to request error anyway, because you can always run out of the like max pending requests. And so let's just have the request error as like the simplest thing to do, because it has to exist anyway. And I think people later, if someone really wants the relay to queue some pending requests, we can add that.
Well, I think people can always, go ahead. Someone else.
One question I have for this, the better short stream credit, it's downstream, but it can be upstream as well, right? You can have, I mean, you can serve someone downstream, but you cannot reach the upstream relay or upstream original militia.
That's the problem here.
That we,
Because the request comes upstream, so like by definition, the requester had certainly for these verbs, the requester had the stream credit to make the request in the first place, or nothing has happened, right? So the relay now needs to pass that request upstream and cannot, because the upstream does not have credit. It cannot open another session in general because of firewalls and stuff.
or because of too many.
Different architectures, some can, some can't. In a CDN, you probably can open a new session if you want.
And so in that case, I mean, we have this tons of forward 1.0 zombie subscription coming that we could get rid of, or put some priority to say, hey, I want to serve the forward 1.1 before all this forward.
The relay could, well, I mean, the problem with stream credit, the way stream credit works is quick, it's max stream ID. And so by closing streams, you don't actually get more stream credit automatically.
But it might enable the.
It might enable something to happen. I think that's internal relay logic that we want to get into.
Let's just write a request here.
Yeah, okay, I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
All right, sweet. Next slide, please, because there's the other, okay. So there's 2 other verbs. Subscribe and publish are weird because, there's like all these flavors now. So there's plain old subscribe and publish. And then there's also publishers that come as a result of subscribe tracks. Like if I can zoom out a little bit, there's some duality here, and that like if for some reason I can't subscribe to you, like because there's no credit, like you could publish to me if I give you credit, right? And vice versa. What currently exists in the editor's draft is there's a message called publish blocked, which occurs only for publishers that are in subscribe tracks. And so it's like, hey, you asked for all these tracks, but you didn't give me any stream credit dummy. So like I can't actually publish this to you. So you should, well, okay. So we need to do something about that. That seems like a sensible subset of subscribe and publish to actually have a specific message for it, because you asked for this and I can't give it to you because of your mistake. What I do think we need to do is, for interoperability reasons, is say what happens when you get publish blocked. What is the expectation? Is the expectation that the peer is going to give you stream credit, or that the peer is going to send subscribe, or something else? In principle, subscribe might be blocked, so that's like another wrap. Well, that's kind of dumb, but like maybe that happened. I mean, if I was setting publish block, I'd probably add some stream credit at the same time. But I guess you don't have to. You can say, like, I'm not sending this to you, this particular track to you, and by the way, you can't really ask for it because I'm not giving you any stream credit. That might be useful information, I suppose. And it's possible to expand this for like all subscribe and publish. You know, I don't think we want to go there, but that's something we could do to allow this duality to come in play. Ian?
I think I think in retrospect, maybe this naming, I named this message poorly. Because I think maybe publish skipped would almost be a better name.
Okay.
And because I actually think there might be use cases for which you actually do have stream credit and you just don't want to use it. Like, you're like, I can open a bidirectional stream, but like, I want to keep some in reserve and I don't want to blow through all of my bidi streams on this subscribe tracks. And so I'm going to like intentionally like I'm going to limit how many bidi streams I use for a given subscribe track.
So I guess one case that if subscribe tracks if the subscribe tracks involved had a low priority and there were higher priority subscribe tracks, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. So basically like, or if you just knew like I might want to do a subscribe namespace to that person in the future. Okay. If I use up my bidi streams, like I can do that. So like I think probably renaming it to publish skipped. And because the intent here is to give the publisher a way to say quickly, I'm not going to give you this publish because I can't / don't want to. Okay. And here's the track name if you want it, the last one.
Yeah, so it's decoupled from the flow controls. It's clearly not this thing.
I think it probably should have been more decoupled. Originally, the motivation was the flow control.
Yes.
The motivation was that, but the more I thought about it, I mean, resource use is complicated, and like I think there are cases when a relay would skip it just because.
So then, so the recommendation would be rename it, and then I think you still need text saying like if the subscriber wants it, they should send subscribe. Yes. Okay. Call me.
I think that makes sense. So I just like, I don't want to have to implement queuing these things if they're blocked and then later unblocking them all. I don't want to do that. And Ian's proposal solves that for me. So I like that. And make it clear it's not an error, right? That's the other possibility to figure out. But I think this also raises the thing you said that the relay might want to not, reserve some streams. I think it's something like that. The client has to understand and has to understand what the limits are. So I think if we're going to have the relay not use all of its streams, then we need to provide in the subscribe tracks a parameter that's the maximum number of tracks you want to use or whatever, right? It's got to be controllable by the client, not just the relay does random shit and the client tries to guess what happened.
I'm kind of inclined to agree with Colin there. Like, just maybe it goes in these subscribe tracks, okay, or something.
But
it's just like, I'll give you 10 or something.
Well, I don't use the namespace too large here.
Oh, it's somewhere else.
It's the food is here. It's on the.
Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. So I think it sounds like Ian knows what to do
for this part.
For this particular thing.
Part, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Alan or I will fight over who writes the request error things to the other slide. And Ian will take care of this slide. Okay. Issue resolved. Let's go eat. Okay. Before everyone stands up. So we have 45 minutes for lunch. It's 12:15 right now. At 12:30, Tom, if that's okay, you will present about is it accurate to call it like Wireshark for MOQ, basically?
10 minutes.
What's that? Okay, well, you will start at 12:30 if you're interested in that. Just eat here so you can hear that talk. If I don't want to discourage people from going having their sidebar conversations, if they want to have their sidebar conversations as well.
But the acoustics here might be that you need to be pretty quiet.
Yeah, it might be good to do that. Well, we got a whole conference room right there, which is great, and it's a big city. Find a place to talk. All right, let's go eat. And those of you who are remote will resume at 1300 London time. Those of you here, please be back by 1300 London time, and we'll see you then. Here, there's different meet echo sessions. Okay, there's a different meet echo session for the afternoon because data tracker. So I'm going to leave for archival purposes. I'm going to conclude at the end of lunch, and then at the beginning of lunch we'll start a new session because you have to log in again. But this will be stored on the YouTube recording for the morning session, this lunch thing. Okay, so those of you who are out there in remote land, join the new Meet Echo at 1300. I cannot delete that. It's a bug.
Yeah, yes. So it's I thought it was like how this.
Can you tell Alessandro this is screwed up?
You have to
Alessandro from Meet Echo.
Almost yes.
Very fast.
Comments for
Okay, so Ian, you really are next, after lunch. And then we'll go back and get you caught up.
Well, I was just signing more rules, so I need to write down the work.
It was never intended to have all this.
On the actual, in the recommendation, the same.
Right. And all the messages where applications appear today.
So you go to,
I was right to
not
just
this page, but the meeting.
So those regularly different then, and the set thing may be weird, because if you don't have multiple ranges, then it doesn't make sense to have them in sets.
Yeah.
You can only have one range, so, you know, what
That's
setting
what
is
it
right?
is. You want to put the set
Mine has
right
disappeared.
with a limitation and put it in the same set.
But then you would need another range,
Yeah.
another location range.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's like I have no location, so-
I gotta figure out this
Yeah.
thing. Can you guys?
Okay.
Well, but if the thing isn't on the meeting page,
I'll just send it.
okay, all right.
Okay, reservation.
And you have.
Yeah, and the stuff was just like a last minute thing because of the problems that, that brought up, and they used for parameters, the DOS spec that you were referring to. There was no screen, my God, basic screen.
Yeah, but I know that one interface class because a skill that is of zero use today.
I consider you leaders, you all, I think, we're going to have to. We've got basically these are the four adopted drafts that I've got right now. How would you prioritize? In terms of the stuff like that. Okay. These,
Yes, there is.
Now that's the part. All those stuff. So this is what I saw.
Hey, Mike? Do we kick out at 5?
That's what I was planning on. But would you like to go later?
I want to know if it's an option.
What, do you know what the fire marshal thing is? Like there's.
How long are you thinking?
I don't know.
6?
Like an hour, 2 hours?
2 hours might be stretching it. An hour is fine, probably.
An hour is fine.
Hour is fine.
Well, I mean, I think we made a few decisions. Well, I don't make one make it all. I'll certainly offer this. Yeah, if you keep trying. Well, no, we need to know the doctrine is important. I think I want people to be able to say that's one reason why I would be happy I'd be happy to put you in either. That's kind of what I had. That's fine.
Yeah, well, I see that
Yeah, but we don't want to change it yet. We want to change it after the demo.
I
I have a strong interest in getting more. So there is something on the IETF website issue is like when the discussion is not about this is a question maybe about the board, I don't know how to resolve it. Like, what I was suggesting at this time, to keep on here. Until we get these, yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know if we want like a category or like yeah. There's no reason anything is happening not adopted. Like the Newman Street is. Right now. Okay, I'll talk to Maggie about it. I would say for now, it's very least, I would remember that. Next thing you talk about. What about? I talked about that. I think rather than continuing to argue,
I want to hear most It's not expensive. That's the problem. I don't think that's. Instead, it's just going out of
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I think they're going to.
Yes, I will improve it for you, so you know. Let's see, I will stop, I'll up there.
You know what I mean? You're saying, don't. That would be my, like, I mean, it's not impossible with another hour of discussion.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think, like.
if you request screen share, yeah.
There's all the
Which is just where we're at.
right, and then same time. If somebody else had another use case, they built it. This helps. It's like writing on a slide. The only thing shape is right. I don't want another issue.
Well, like, I mean, you know, if only there were another competitor that was not Cisco, responded to Cisco.
No, I did.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Well, that was I don't know what we're like. You got your fingers in the and I'm not even sure what are you. Like, could be the text, which is like different.
Yeah, you.
All right, so are we not sure? Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's like kind of like a kind of like Wireshark, I guess. It's not. I think if you get the. Are we ready? What's happening?
He's trying to get the screen sharing set up for him to finish out the whole screen.
So like, these are the answer. One of those are all the works on a massive scale. Essentially what I'm trying to self-exclusion. It's not that plus every time like this is K. Because every it's a different K. K is the maximum. That would be great.
So your implementation is not resolved.
But no, I have my implementation is screwed up. In a way that scales to my satisfaction. The code is so us is like you can do something similar, like more linear scans and stuff. Yeah, which I like for linear scans. Forever. And there's just a lot of data structures built in. So like, and it could be it's my architecture. Yeah, it's like if they want to, I would be more
So what we must have over. Hey, okay, which might be that. But take the first one. Okay, well, we are not. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, how long is it? Half hour. Ah, that's annoying. Let me see. Yeah, because they open only 10 minutes before the start time, so it's.
What it does is like.
Yes, from that perspective, we need yeah. We need a scheduling. 13, 20, yes. So that's 25 minutes, or 24, or what, yeah. Okay, yeah, then we got to like. I think we're screwed because we come past 16 minutes or so. Okay, so you can't join anymore but it hasn't really ended because we failed, but yeah, okay. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see if we. Okay. Yeah. No, we can go. We had a schedule break in sessions. Oh, so we got correct? No. Well, it's, I mean, you can't join the old system. So that's, yes, the one is part of all, because it's a part the new one becomes closed, and the new one opens when you pass it.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm more like stuff in the progress.